plague of monsters breached our reality, plunging the world into an abyss of despair. Humanity fought back with every last gasp to defend the remnants of the world they knew. Among these valiant heroes was the legend of our tale, Carcillion Levendayan, who met this tide of darkness with unparalleled ferocity. For what felt like ages, he waged a war against innumerable beasts. His lone blade relentlessly carved a path through mountains of carnage. Within his heart, not a single shred of fear could be found. And then it came. The final dawn broke, and he faced a colossal, titan-like harbinger of doom. That unholy creature was an indomitable force of destruction. The clash was cataclysmic, but he ultimately vanquished the foul behemoth. In the silent aftermath of his victory, his own life force finally extinguished, but destiny had not yet finished its work. His soul, adrift in the endless, silent void, encountered the spirit of a boy from a distant world known as Earth. The boy introduced himself as Seo Dujin, his own existence fading for reasons unknown. With his final moments, he wished to make a desperate plea to Vendia, who instantly dismissed the notion. He refused before even hearing what the young soul desired. After all, our warrior yearned only for the sweet release of death. He was utterly spent from the eternal conflict. He had watched his homeland burn to ash, lost everyone he held dear, and finally met a warrior's lonely end. Meanwhile, the boy, Seo Dujin, did not truly wish for his own life to continue. His one fervent wish was for his family to live a prosperous life. At this, it seemed Van Diane's hardened heart was finally moved to listen. The boy's spirit brightened with a flicker of hope, a brilliant final spark. He gathered his remaining strength to speak. He wanted nothing more than his family to live in peace. And so, our hero accepted this sacred duty to protect the boy's loved ones. He awoke to find himself reborn on Earth, now inhabiting the vessel of that young man, Dujin. Our protagonist is now on a quest to breach the Namsen Gate, a C-ranked dungeon for reasons that will become clear. Only officially sanctioned heroes may pass its threshold. The automated system blares incessantly, demanding he scan his identification, a credential which our warrior, of course, does not possess. He simply shatters the barrier of the authorized-only structure, forcing his entry into the gate. This action immediately triggers a security alarm, screaming of infiltration. Once inside, he begins to prowl the area, seeking monstrous prey to crush. It's then he happens upon a hunting party of heroes. These are individuals with official licenses and authorization to be here. They mistake our protagonist for someone who has strayed off course, and kindly offer to guide him toward the exit. They mention that they themselves are preparing to depart. Dujin remains silent, radiating an unsettling aura. Even these seasoned heroes sense something is amiss. He is dressed in ordinary street clothes and lacks any heroic gear, while porters have adopted more casual attire these days. Our hero's outfit is far too plain, almost dangerously so, and the simple backpack he carries seems out of place. They conclude he must be a bewildered and inexperienced porter, likely abandoned by the hunting party he had accompanied. Still, a feeling of doubt lingers among them. Dujin finally breaks his silence. He acknowledges their cautious skepticism about it, but he clarifies that he entered this place alone, without any hero part. Hearing this revelation, one of the heroes sighs in disdain. He thinks he understands the motive behind our hero's actions. He has witnessed many similar cases before. Fools who develop a burning desire to become heroes, to hunt monsters after watching glamorized television programs. But that fleeting burst of motivation can lead to a swift death. If they foolishly barge into gates without thought, one must follow the legally mandated procedures. First, you must acquire official certification as a licensed hero. Then, you endure rigorous training and examinations. Furthermore, this treacherous gate is rank C for a reason. If you're merely a novice starting your journey, you should seek out an F-rank gate before you forfeit your life. After enduring this man's lecture and unsolicited advice, Dujin makes it painfully clear he requires none of their pity or help. Naturally, the party of heroes is taken aback by this young man, who responds with such an icy, detached tone. After all, their intentions were to offer assistance, so their patience begins to wear thin. But their leader instructs his comrades to stand down and remain calm. If this young man refuses their help, then so be it. They will leave him to his fate. The leader is certain this arrogant kid will soon learn a harsh lesson. He will discover why you do not ignore the wisdom of your elders. They hope he truly understands how unforgiving these gates can be, unlike the fabricated television shows that portray being a hero as some glorious, godlike profession. Before long, Dujin confronts a monstrous troll staring him down, poised to tear him limb from limb. The beast lunges with a devastating attack, only to smash into empty earth. Our hero moved with blinding speed, so fast the troll couldn't even register his disappearance. He then clenches his fist and unleashes a cataclysmic punch, a blow powerful enough to obliterate the orc's face entirely. It was a spectacle straight from a legend of one-punch heroes, a god of combat on an unstoppable rampage. With a monstrosity now dispatched from this world, it is time for the spoils of war. The time for looting has arrived. He first retrieves the crude blade the fiend was wielding. He then uses that very weapon to carve into the monster's corpse and extracts a faintly glowing gemstone from its core. It is revealed to be a low-grade magic stone, an item so insignificant that Dujin would never have spared it a glance in his former life. But given his current state of poverty, he has no other option. In that moment, more foul creatures swarm his position, enraged upon seeing their comrade's desecrated corpse. Dujin turns and hurls the magic stone with such velocity that it literally shatters one of the creature's skulls upon impact. The other two mindless beasts charge forward, as if they possess some desperate death wish to be granted, and Dujin is more than willing to oblige their request. While he unleashes his devastating power, we return our focus to the party of heroes. They are cautiously navigating this monster-filled domain. Presently, their thoughts are still occupied by their strange encounter with that mysterious young man from before. The woman with orange hair is genuinely concerned for Dujin's safety. She fears that he may have already met his end. But the leader of their group reassures her that it is highly improbable if he is indeed an unauthorized intruder who forced his way into the gate. Agents from the gate control center will locate him shortly. Those dispatched agents are always B rank in power or higher, and given that this gate is only C rank, there is no conceivable way he would perish in this place. As long as the young man avoids recklessly charging toward the monsters, he has absolutely no chance of losing his life here. The bald man concurs with his leader's logical assessment. He is quite certain the arrogant young fool is now paralyzed with fear, awaiting the agents to rescue his pathetic hide from certain doom. Of course, the reality is the complete opposite of their assumptions. It is our protagonist who is causing these lumbering beasts to tremble in absolute terror. A single punch, and his unfortunate prey is obliterated. He moves with such blinding speed they cannot land a single blow, let alone crush him beneath the weight of their massive blades. He materializes directly behind one of the witless creatures and delivers a kick of such immense force that it completely pulverizes the creature's skull. With all the opposition vanquished, he seizes one of their weapons and begins to harvest the precious magic stones, claiming them all for himself. After some time, he has filled his bag and prepares to depart. Truthfully, he is quite underwhelmed with this particular hunt. The contents of his bag are essentially worthless trinkets. All of these low-grade gemstones, that is, suddenly, one of the control center agents finally locates him and alerts his comrades. Before our hero can fully react, the men in suits give him an intimidating stare down. They first identify themselves as being from the gate control center and demand that he present his official hero registration card. If he is found to be unregistered, he must accompany them to the center. Our hero does not seem keen on that idea. This causes the agent's posture to stiffen as his demeanor grows colder. He insists that he cooperate and adhere to the established protocols. The only reply the agents receive is pure annoyance, written plainly across our hero's expression. All of this bureaucratic nonsense is ruining his concentration. Nevertheless, he lacks the energy to engage in a pointless debate. He simply turns to depart, as words are proving ineffective. The agents threaten him with restraints. If he continues to refuse compliance, physical force may become necessary. One of the more hot-headed agents dares to seize our hero's arm and warns him of the injuries he is sure to sustain should he continue to resist their authority. Furthermore, all legal liability will fall squarely upon him, so it is in everyone's best interest to resolve this with words, not with violence. It appears Dujin is done with their empty threats. He seizes that fool's wrist with an iron grip and warns him to cease being a thorn in his path immediately. This chilling admonition sends a wave of primal fear through the agent. An icy chill runs straight down his spine. The other two agents draw their magically infused batons. They are identified as grade 4 magic staves, weapons potent enough to incapacitate an orc, but they lack sufficient power to inflict any real harm on our hero. So he aggressively twists the agent's captured wrist, causing him to cry out like the pathetic weakling he is. Our protagonist then issues one final dire warning. They must depart from this place now, if they do not wish to lose what little dignity they still possess. Eventually, the duty-bound agents are compelled to retaliate with force. They try desperately to strike our hero with their magic staves, but none of them are successful. Our hero delivers a crushing blow into the back of one of the men. He then strikes another squarely in the gut. Next, he turns his attention to the man wearing glasses, the last remaining agent on his feet. The final man senses the coming doom and becomes incredibly tense. Doo-jin moves like a phantom, vanishing completely from sight. This causes the agent to panic, literally witnessing a man disappear. Then, from nowhere, a vicious punch lands squarely in his midsection, sending the agent staggering backward in agonizing pain. It seems Doo-jin has grown weary of this pointless conflict with the agents, so he finally considers the idea of registering as an official hero. After all, the agent assures him that as long as he avoids any illegal activities, no other agents will be dispatched to pursue him. Doo-jin then inquires about something called a rift, a question that seems to completely stun the agent. A brief explanation of how this world functions. There exist numerous passages connecting to an alternate dimension, a world inhabited by strange and hostile monsters. These otherworldly passages are scattered across the globe. The gemstones harvested from the corpses of these monsters are utilized as powerful new energy sources, making them extremely valuable. Because of their importance, the government strictly regulates these passages to maintain absolute control over every single one. Every government controlled and sanctioned passage for heroes is designated as a gate. Passages that are unregulated or uncontrolled are known as rifts. Returning to our protagonist, who finds it immensely annoying that these agents shadow his every move, accusing him of trespassing regardless of which gate he enters. The beleaguered agent explains that if an unregistered hero enters a gate without authorization, the control center receives an automatic notification. An agent stationed nearby are dispatched without delay. Since our hero is considering entering a rift, the agent warns him that they are not as easily accessible as gates. Illegally entering a rift will result in severe punishment. There are no warnings, no second chances. Doo-jin has no interest in hearing any more of this, so he seizes the man by his face and casually tosses him aside like a piece of refuse. By this point, the unfortunate agent deeply regrets not calling for backup. This situation is far beyond his pay grade. Before he departs, Doo-jin gives one final, contemptuous glance at the agent lying there. He reflects on what a truly pathetic creature this man is. The weakling seems to be nursing a fractured arm and is busy shouting empty threats at him. He vows that he will capture our hero and see him in prison. The scene shifts to the Heart of Seoul, the gas and digital complex in the Gyeongju district. This colossal structure is now widely known as the Hero Complex. Here, all commerce related to magic stones, or any artifacts discovered within the gates, takes place. And in recent times, this location is more bustling than ever before. Doo-jin can be seen approaching one of the many stores, one that specializes in buying and selling magic stones. Upon entering, he is acknowledged by this young, modern clerk, who is currently engrossed in mindless social media videos. When Doo-jin announces he wishes to sell some magic stones, the shrewd shop owner immediately begins boasting about his establishment. He claims that this specific branch offers the most generous prices to clients. He even dares to assert that they're the best in the entire nation. Doo-jin then empties his collection of low-grade gems, still smeared with the blood of monsters, onto the counter. This causes the store owner to adopt a look of pure disgust, as if he had just been grievously insulted. He is utterly revolted by the gore caked onto the stones. Regardless, he stifles his complaints and proceeds with the transaction. Doo-jin is offered a complimentary coffee while the gemstones are being properly processed. A short time later, he is calmly sipping his coffee as the shop owner meticulously cleans the blood from the stones. Afterward, the owner tabulates the total value of the haul. There are 12 low-grade magic stones, 16 medium-grade ones, plus 5 stones of varying higher quality. After subtracting a 40% commission fee, Doo-jin's final payout will be approximately 5.5 million won. Our hero is not at all comfortable with surrendering 40% as commission. It feels profoundly unjust. He was the one who did all the hunting and risked his life. So how in the world does this merchant believe he is entitled to nearly half of the earnings? The shop owner arrogantly states that he is being generous, charging him a mere 40% fee, especially since every competitor in this business charges 45% or more. He is so certain that he even suggests Doo-jin take his stones back if he is dissatisfied with the offered price. After all, no other establishment will offer a better deal, or at least that is what this conniving merchant claims. Our protagonist is not falling for this obvious deception. He begins placing his precious stones back into his bag. Realizing his manipulative tactics have failed, the merchant grabs Doo-jin's arm before he can depart and demands payment for the appraisal and the coffee he consumed. It's 30,000 won for the appraisal service, plus an additional 10,000 won for the coffee. Not to mention all the monster blood he had to clean, which ruined his expensive cleaning towel. With all these fictitious charges combined, Doojin supposedly owes this man around 350,000 won. Doojin will not capitulate to these outrageous demands, no matter how intensely this desperate merchant insists. Seeing that reason has failed, the merchant resorts to thuggish tactics. He threatens Doojin with the C-class heroes he employs as security. Right on cue, those large enforcers emerge from the back room, inquiring why they have been summoned. If someone is causing a disturbance, they are prepared to handle the situation. In response, Doojin directs a piercing glare at the merchant, who stares back with equal ferocity. A moment passes, and the scene shifts to the utterly terrified, sweat-drenched face of the shop owner, who had been acting so arrogantly, as if he were invincible. But he received a harsh dose of reality when Doojin dismantled his 3 enforcers, without even breaking a sweat, proving who the true powerhouse is. My man then approaches the counter once more, and calmly renegotiates the commission fee down to a mere 1%. No further discussion is necessary. We all understand that there can be no argument when a man like Doojin is staring directly into your very soul. So the deal is finalized, and Doojin departs with a substantial sum of cash. Payment for the loot he collected with his own blood and sweat, or more accurately, with his fists. His grandmother and sister are in disbelief at the enormous quantity of money. Grandma even suspects Doojin of trying to deceive them with counterfeit bills, but he quickly dispels her concerns, explaining the money came from a loan repaid by a friend who started a business that became wildly successful. Grandma is doubtful if her grandson has such an affluent friend. He attempts to convince her with another fabrication, claiming it was a friend from his childhood. Finally, Grandma ceases her questioning, at least regarding the major details. Meanwhile, Doojin's sister is incredibly proud of her older brother for bringing such wealth to their family. The loving brother pats her on the head and speaks of the luxurious life they are now destined to live. The young girl jumps with pure excitement, overjoyed by their newfound fortune. Watching her radiant happiness, Doojin acknowledges that he is making significant progress, fulfilling the sacred promise he made. He recalls the final words of the body's original owner, whose sole dying wish was for his grandmother and his half-sister, Eunyoung, to live safe and prosperous lives. That unfortunate soul vanished before Doojin could respond, and when he awoke, he had become CO Doojin. Now, his only mission is to ensure this small family lives securely and comfortably. For this purpose, he plans to purchase the most secure residence in all of Korea, which currently has a price of 110 billion won. For him, acquiring money will not be a problem, as long as he can reclaim his original, godlike strength. This world shares many similarities with the one he originated from, the one that was ultimately annihilated. The only significant difference is that the rifts, gates, and monsters here are all considerably weaker than in the world he once saw fall to ruin. To him, who held the title of Sword God in his past life, this place is nothing more than a training ground. Thus far, he has only been fighting with 1/10 of his true power. Suddenly, there is an aggressive knock at the door. The visitor announces he is here to see CO Doojin. Our hero rises and decides to answer the summons. As he opens the door, he discovers 2 brutish thugs standing outside. These men are here to collect a debt Doojin owes, an absurd 48 million won. From this, Doojin deduces they must be predatory loan sharks, the original CEO. Doojin borrowed money before departing this world for good, although it was meant to be only 5 million won initially for his grandmother's medical expenses. These men are charging an exorbitant interest rate, demanding nearly 10 times the original loan amount. They are somehow aware he has been earning money from the gates recently, so they expect him to produce the payment immediately, since it is all supposedly documented in the signed contract. But the only repayment these thugs receive is a jaw-shattering punch, delivered squarely to the larger man's face. That single blow sends the unfortunate thug flying backward, leaving his partner with his jaw agape in utter disbelief. Our hero then gives the scrawny man a deathly glare, reminding him that over 9 million won has already been repaid. So if one does the simple math, these thugs should be the ones paying him interest. With another punch, he makes the man cry out in agony. Doojin instructs him to inform his boss that he will be paying a visit. The scene then shifts to a shopping mall teeming with vibrant life. There we see the sweet, innocent Eunyoung, her face lit up with joy in a teddy bear store. Doojin has brought her here for a well-deserved shopping spree. Today, she is free to have anything her heart desires. You see, our hero was not always this gentle, kind-hearted soul in his former life. It is the lingering memories of the original Doojin that have rekindled his dormant emotions. It warms his heart to witness how kindly Doojin treated Eunyoung, even though she is merely his half-sister. So he wishes to continue this tradition and ensure he gives all the affection he can possibly muster for this precious little girl. The young girl finally selects a stuffed animal she truly wants, a small but adorable bunny rabbit. She chooses it with humility, careful not to seem too extravagant. But Dujin selects a much larger stuffed animal for her. He does not want her to restrain herself in any way. This is her special day, and she can choose whatever she desires, without a second thought about the cost. They both indulge in some delicious food as well, as they are enjoying their meal. An unfamiliar voice calls out our hero's name. It is a middle-aged woman, flanked by a group of bodyguards. This pompous woman seems to be yet another detractor, who delights in disparaging our protagonist. First, she criticizes his poor taste in clothes. Then she questions the identity of the girl seated beside him. She is audacious enough to make a crude joke, suggesting he must have fathered this child out of wedlock, just as his own mother brought him into this world. Naturally, these sharp insults enrage our hero beyond measure. Meanwhile, the little girl is completely unaware of who this woman is, or why she is speaking so contemptuously. This woman then quickly shifts her focus to the girl and demands to know her name. The girl introduces herself as Lee Eun-young, which makes this vile woman realize she is Dujin's sister. Out of sheer habit, the woman insults her clothing as well, calling her appearance a mess. This which doesn't even spare their deceased mother. And all of this is grating on our hero's last nerve. But for some unknown reason, he is containing his rage, refusing to react aggressively to her provocations. Even this woman is quite surprised at how Dujin is maintaining his composure, not falling for her malicious traps. So, this which decides to escalate her attack. This foul woman is brazen enough to ask a child the definition of the word harlot. Well, that is the final straw. Dujin finally snaps, calling her a hideous woman who belongs to a tribe of orcs. Of course, the woman is left completely stunned and speechless, having been caught completely off guard. Let's add some necessary context to understand why Dujin has been tolerating this woman's behavior. Only to a certain point, you see. Dujin was born an illegitimate child and was raised in poverty. At the tender age of 7, his mother passed away, and he barely managed to reach his father's house, with his father remarrying a new woman. He was ostracized by everyone in the household. Things only worsened after his father's legitimate wife gave birth to a son, and Dujin was then ignored completely. The situation became so dire that he was eventually cast out of the house and went to live with his half-sister at their grandmother's home. As our hero reflects on this past, he feels pity for the original Dujin, who had to suffer through all of this, and yet still attempted to maintain a smile on his face, as if he had no sorrow in his life. But now he intends to change everything. It seems this woman is his stepsister, which explains why he was attempting to restrain himself. But he will not tolerate her behavior any longer. He recalls how he once shared a home with this orc-like woman, and she's just as vile as he remembers. Not only is her personality warped and her appearance grotesque, she's also incredibly unintelligent. He further shatters her spirit by dropping devastating truth bombs about how she is a wreck with a crippling inferiority complex. That is the sole reason she projects her insecurities onto others. By calling them ugly, she is simply a shallow gold digger obsessed with others. And that is the absolute truth the world must know. As he continues to crush her with his verbal assault, the entire shopping mall is watching them, as if they were the main attraction. The orc-like lady is completely infuriated and about to explode, but then Dujin's stepmother makes her appearance. Seeing her mother, the orc lady approaches her like the whining child she is, complaining about how this boy has utterly humiliated her with his words. But her mother is annoyed to see her daughter behaving so childishly and silences her with a single cold glare. I must admit, our hero has quite a formidable stepmother. At first, I even mistook the orc lady for his stepmother. The elegant matriarch turns her attention to our protagonist and greets him with the utmost politeness. She is extending an invitation for him to return home for a visit. But Dujin is well aware of the truth, that this polite facade his stepmother is displaying is completely false. After all, she was the one who caused him the most misery and turmoil during the 12 years he lived in their household. The woman continues, reminding Dujin of painful memories he wishes to forget, triggering his trauma and causing him to become deathly serious, with a tone colder than the Arctic winter. Our hero tells this which to get the hell out of his sight. This is a tremendous blow to her pride, being spoken to so disrespectfully by someone younger than her. She simply turns on her heel and departs, with what little remains of her dignity still intact. In truth, she never expected him to retort so sharply. She is left wondering if this is the same boy who would just meekly lower his head, even when she would slap him for no reason at all. Her wretched daughter trails behind, along with their bodyguards, who also follow the two women. Honestly, Those guards played the perfect role of silent statues in this confrontation. Let's redirect our focus back to our hero. It appears those two vile women completely ruined the pleasant time our duo was having. So our hero decides it is time for them to leave as well. The way he reacted to his step-family was completely deliberate. He wanted to make one thing perfectly clear. The CEO Doojin, who couldn't even defend himself, is gone forever. It is high time his despicable family understands that. We then cut to a luxury sedan speeding down the highway. Inside the vehicle, we see both the wicked mother and daughter. The daughter is furious with her mother for simply walking away quietly, instead of putting Doojin in his place, as she voices her frustration and curses our hero for the public humiliation they endured. The mother commands her manager to explain why Doojin is still alive. The ball man has no idea how this young man is still breathing. It directly contradicts the official reports. The woman screams at the top of her lungs about the utter nonsense this man is speaking. How could he possibly still be alive if they ensured the job was carried out cleanly? The poor man assures her he will investigate the matter again and guarantee that this time the job is executed flawlessly. Meanwhile, the wretched daughter has no idea what her sinister mother has been scheming all this time. She is shaken upon hearing talk of killing and death. Finally, the mother poses a probing question to her daughter, wondering if she harbors romantic feelings for Doojin. This question catches the girl completely by surprise. The physical and mental price he had been forced to pay, all thanks to the meddling of these pathetic thugs. Through his unwavering and powerful words, the boss senses a profound transformation in the young man's demeanor. Something about this kid had fundamentally shifted. He was no longer the timid soul or the meek person he once was. Then there was the undeniable proof. This very same boy had effortlessly dismantled the enforcers sent to his home. Considering all the evidence, the boss's primary theory is that CEO Doojin must have undergone some kind of legendary awakening from his harrowing trials within the gate. Yet even with this realization, the dude foolishly chooses arrogance, telling Doojin that this newfound power, born from his awakening, will ultimately become his downfall. The hypocrite scolds our hero for being overconfident in his power and to reinforce his empty threats. He summons a squad of imposing brutes to intimidate him. Of course, he can gather all the muscle he desires, but in the eyes of the legendary sword god, they are nothing more than insignificant insects. The boss continues his worthless boasting, claiming that even newly awakened individuals are often slain, like cannon fodder and low-level heroes. Ultimately, the most laughable part is that this fool is operating under the delusion that CEO Doojin is nothing more than a mere D-class level hero. He believes his organization can easily crush someone so pathetically weak. Meanwhile, Doojin is simply relaxing on the sofa in the background, while 5 goons glare at him with murderous intent. Unfazed, without a trace of fear, he commands the boss to sit back down. The boss is absolutely stunned to hear him maintain that same commanding tone. Doojin then emphasizes with an icy stare that he has not finished speaking. Upon hearing such a bold declaration, one of the goons decides his ego has been bruised and foolishly challenges Doojin. Amusingly, our hero calmly removes his glasses, only adding to the thug's bewilderment. And then it happened. He unleashes what can only be described as a cataclysmic meteor impact. God-tier super punch directly into the fool's face. The man is sent soaring from the sheer force, while his allies are left completely speechless. But that wasn't the end, because the punishment was shared among the group, as Doojin strikes down yet another one. Keep in mind, while he's systematically dismantling them, he is also calmly stating his case. He reveals his knowledge of the boss's clandestine operations, hidden beneath the facade of a money-lending agency. Doojin aims a fist at an orange-haired thug and proves he knows about the forged identification business. After landing his devastating punch, he informs the boss that he requires a hero identity to officially register as one and earn legitimate money, effortlessly dodging a strike from the final thug. Doojin returns the blow with triple the intensity, and that is how he put the entire group to sleep, with his special bedtime routine that works 100% of the time. Doojin continues with his list of demands, stating that he is in need of a completely flawless identification, one that will cause him no trouble in the future. The boss is left utterly shell-shocked by what has just transpired, all in the span of mere seconds. Our hero reminds him he has only one day to forge this new identity. By the way, some of the men wisely did not join the fight, which is actually a credit to these particular NPCs, because they're usually the type to challenge a god, while being a level 1 novice. In most tales, the boss is now reeling from this reality check as he begins to reevaluate Doojin's true power level. At the very minimum, this man appears to be B-class in strength. The fool is so lost in his own thoughts that he must be reminded by the boy to snap out of his stupor. He quickly accepts the assignment, of course. Finally, Jin places a hand gently on his shoulder, a gesture contrasted by the menacing expression on his face. He wants to know if Hee-ju, his wicked stepmother, ordered the hit on him. Of course, we know this to be the absolute truth, proven by the conversation she had with her daughter and her assistant. Earlier, the boss is at a complete loss for words, until Jin tightens his grip so hard that the man yelps in agony. Even his remaining goons look on helplessly, unable to aid their boss. I must say, they really should consider getting new haircuts as well. Anyway, the boss finally breaks and reveals her despicable plan. This cruel, scheming woman actually intended to drain Jin's finances completely, forcing him into such a state of financial ruin that he would have no other choice but to take his own life to escape the despair. Now, that is the very definition of a truly evil scheme, especially one directed at your own son. Even a castaway son. Those were her explicit orders. Jin hears this confession, and after the man's pathetic begging, he releases his grip, immediately questioned if that was also the reason they trapped him inside the gate. The boss suddenly transforms into an innocent victim, claiming he had no involvement in that incident. He even goes as far as to reveal that he wouldn't be paid for the job if Jin had died inside the gate. That is probably one believable reason why he couldn't have committed such an act. And this revelation already has Jin think. He utters the name Kong Chulwoo. This is, in fact, the name of the man who led him into the gate in the first place. Therefore, Jin demands every single piece of information on this man to be delivered by tomorrow, with his two demands clearly stated. He departs politely, completely altering the atmosphere of the room from when he first arrived. After that tense confrontation, Jin is left in a state of deep reflection. Again, the original CO Jin had only one true desire. He wanted to protect his little sister and his cherished grandmother, no matter the cost. On top of everything else that occurred, this just adds another layer of tragedy and reveals the kind of life the poor boy was forced to endure while utterly powerless. But fear not, because the sword god is now prepared to do whatever it takes in order to finally set things right. The very next day, guess what? Our boy is now officially registered, and he's been granted a B-rank designation. A welcome change of pace, unlike so many other tales, where the main character is inexplicably stuck at the lowest possible rank. For dramatic effect, tapping his card on the scanner, he confirms the card's authenticity. The system recognizes his identity immediately. However, it warns him that his rank is still below the danger level of the quest he is about to undertake. This is quite irritating to our hero, who now thinks that perhaps he should have coerced the fool to assign him an even higher rank, so he wouldn't encounter these pointless obstacles, despite the system's persistent warnings not to enter a gate so far above his supposed level. Jin doesn't care in the slightest and proceeds anyway. Let's delve into the specifics of a Night Island gate. It is officially designated as a B-rank gate, but that doesn't mean a B-rank hunter can safely clear. Heroes are always advised to be a class higher than the gate's rank, for the sake of mission safety. Anyway, the scale of this dungeon is considered D rank, which means it is vast and will be challenging for a solo hunter. The one silver lining, however, is that it is structured in the form of tunnels, which means to some degree, solo hunting won't be as difficult for him this time. Because of the gate's scale, it is strongly recommended that an A-rank hero undertakes this task. But the words risk and danger do not exist in our hero's vocabulary. If anything, the worst possible scenario is that he will have to face an entire legion of monsters in a confined tunnel with little room to maneuver. Jin smiles as he greets his first opponent, a colossal serpent surrounded by a chaotic purple aura. For most heroes, this would be a harbinger of terror. But for him, this is an omen of good fortune as he prepares his gauntlets to begin the battle. Oh, and one more thing. The serpent has brought a few of its friends along, and their inner jaws remind me of a certain sci-fi movie. Anyway, they do their best to launch an attack, but it's utterly futile because our hero is a true killing machine. He snatches and harvests the mana stones from their corpses, as if the monsters never even posed a threat. The Black Killing Viper. This is a class of monster known for its fast-acting paralysis, venom, that can incapacitate anyone with even the slightest touch. With this knowledge in mind, Jin charges, propelling himself forward at bullet-like speed, and unleashes a full-force assault. In a short span of time, he is about to slice and dice the creature across its entire body, spilling blood until he completely severs the monster in two. With the creature vanquished, Jin inspects his equipment. The gloves he bought are ensuring the deadly venom does not make contact with his skin, and for the price of 300,000 won, they are certainly holding up well. Returning to the glorious hunt, Jin turns his focus to 4 more of these grotesque, limbless reptiles and begins blasting through their skulls with his immense speed. More and more blood erupts, until the vipers are all sent to the great beyond. Dujin now stands amidst the carnage, busy searching for a collection of magic stones by tearing through the monster's flesh. To his disappointment, there isn't a single magic stone to be found, but this is consistent with the laws of his previous, original world. In that reality, these specific monsters only had a drop rate of 3% for mana stones. This means that he will have to hunt down at least 100 of them for any decent loot. Continuing on his path, he discovers a skeletal behemoth. You might assume it's the boss monster, but Dujin has a slightly different theory. He asks the oversized serpent if he is indeed the boss monster, because obviously, the snake will reply like a trusted confidant. Anyway, Dujin thinks it a fortunate occurrence that this big guy has appeared, because he will no longer have to worry about getting lost in this maze, launching into an immediate devastating strike. He intends to end this battle quickly, so he can return home. But then, something completely unexpected occurs. Despite having successfully landed a powerful blow, his punch has absolutely no effect on the creature. Instead, he just gave the beast a new tattoo on its head, while he is still airborne and unable to evade. The creature smashes him into the wall with its powerful tail. Dujin sits there, having crash-landed hard. It probably served as a reality check about this boss monster's true strength. The creature bares its venomous fangs and hisses at him, like an average girlfriend when she is absolutely starved. The creature lunges, attempting to bite him in two, but luckily, he manages to evade the attack, using the momentum from his evasive maneuver. He launches himself right back into the fray with a powerful punch that connects with the creature's massive body, leaving more cracks across its hardened shell. From this second assault, one thing has been made perfectly clear to him. This boss monster possesses an unusually tough exterior, making it a far greater challenge than the other vipers he is already disposed of. The shell is so powerful at his current level that he cannot penetrate it with a single strike alone. This completely reverses the situation on him, making him wonder if he should adopt a different battle strategy. At his original full strength, the sword god would have wiped the floor with this pathetic beast. But then, suddenly, he notices something. It is the sword of a warrior who lost his life fighting this very boss. And now, you are all about to witness why he is called the sword god, and not the god of fists. Even though the weapon is extremely worn out from the last battle, he takes hold of it, believing that a sword is only as powerful as the one who wields it. With this knowledge in mind, and the blade now in his hand, he walks confidently toward the monstrous snake. The creature propels itself forward to strike him down once more, moving with incredible speed. Dujin responds by launching himself high into the air, proudly declaring that the creature should feel honored, that he is going all out to kill the beast with a sword, despite the sword's pathetic condition. This man unleashes a flurry of blindingly fast cuts in the span of just a few strikes, which leaves the snake's body completely shredded. The intense battle comes to a comical conclusion, with the snake dying in the background, while our hero's sword disintegrates into dust. It's a good thing. He finished the creature off while the blade was still intact. With the boss monster finally defeated, Dujin conceives of a brilliant idea, one that I don't often see other protagonists think of. He snaps off one of the creature's massive fangs, believing it could be used as an excellent material for a short sword, with a little bit of refinement, considering this his reward for the journey. He finally exits the gate. By the time he emerges, it is already a star-filled night outside. He spent far more time in the B-rank gate than he anticipated, and with the way things concluded at the end, it only fueled his determination to pursue and restore his strength back to its former glory. Also, he is a bit relieved that his old comrades cannot see this weakened version of himself, because that would be quite embarrassing. Returning from the hunt, he goes to appraise and sell his magic stones. Ahead of him, there is actually another hero who has come to present his impressive stash of magic stones. The scummy receptionist treats him with utter disrespect and states that the commission rate is a standard 40%. Even this innocent man can sense the utter bullshit behind that rate, that outrageously high rate. He even calls him out on it, voicing his concerns and identifying himself as just a normal guy. The receptionist, just as he did with Dujin, clarifies that their rate is actually the lowest among all the appraisal businesses. The gate centers is 5%, but that's before taxes, from the perspective of the sleazy merchant. This is a fantastic deal for heroes that earns them good money. The cash is then handed over to the hero, who doesn't seem to complain much further, except for asking with concern about the man's bruised face. The funny thing is how this guy is still repeating the exact same script, even after getting his face completely rearranged. He tries to play it off casually, claiming that some psychopath first annihilated his guards, and then left him with this lovely parting gift. The hero thinks it's actually the fault of the receptionist for employing such low-ranking guards at the C rank level. After all, rank isn't the only thing that defines a hero in their world. Skill plays an enormous role as well. Rank is actually a poor representation of one's true abilities and only updated to maintain the integrity of the system. The hero is wise enough to mention that people of the very same rank have a vast variance in their skills and abilities, so they cannot all be treated as equals. Then there's also a massive difference between a lazy security guard who sits around all day guarding a shop and a true hero out there who is actively hunting monsters for a living, even though this man is actually giving him some very solid advice. The joker of a receptionist just wants him to stop talking and leave the store already, which he does, offering to help the little guy out if he ever requires assistance. As he is departing, our boy walks directly past the man, looking as cold as ever. Upon seeing him again, the receptionist flinches and completely freaks out. He points directly at Dujin, shouting that this is the very psychopath that made a mess of him. Turning back to face them both, the veteran hero is actually quite impressed. He notes our boy's lean physique for his height. Still, the fact that he made a mess of the guards here prompts the man to prepare himself for a fight, questioning if he is indeed the troublemaker. The one thing I appreciate about this guy is that he isn't offended for petty, personal reasons. He genuinely believes that Dujin is misusing his heroic powers by bullying ordinary civilians in his normal life. Of course, this couldn't be further from the truth, since he only knows one side of the entire story, but it is still quite refreshing to see such realistic characters. The receptionist is savoring the scene, knowing that this hero is actually a 7-year veteran. If something happens to him in this store, the man has plenty of powerful connections he can exploit by giving them Dujin's name, without giving a single damn about who he is. Our boy turns back and simply tells the old man to get lost. This only serves to provoke the man even further, because all of a sudden, now it truly appears as if he's being an arrogant asshole. Dujin asks if the man is seeking to exact revenge on him. Hearing those words, the veteran hero is indeed provoked. However, being the responsible hero that he is, and from the experience he possesses, he knows that it is incredibly unwise to battle against other heroes, as it almost always results in death. It is actually an even higher fatality rate than a fight against monsters. Recalling that simple fact, the man literally calms down and turns his back, leaving the receptionist at a complete loss for words. Dujin then turns to the sleazy merchant and asks if he has a problem he wishes to address. Before the man could even answer, he tossed a bag filled with magic stones to be appraised and converted into currency. These precious, shimmering gems are all high-grade magic stones, which really begs the question of who this young man truly is. From the perspective of the receptionist calculating the amount, the final total comes out to be 150 million won. It may seem like a large sum at first glance, but to Dujin, it's far too little for a full day of hunting. He demands the cash immediately, but the receptionist reminds him of the commission rate. They must calculate beforehand, which obviously earns him a terrifying look from our boy, remembering that the rate is only 1% in their little agreement. He finally cools down and tells the man to prepare the rest of the amount for him. Now, inside the mind of the comical merchant, he wants to beat the absolute crap out of this kid for his audacity, but it is only within his imagination that he can do so. Speaking of which, the receptionist explains that there must be approval from upper management for a transaction of this magnitude. Without wasting another second, Dujin demands that he get the approval at this very instant. So the man quickly phones his boss, whispering the details of their precarious situation. But before he can smoothly negotiate a deal, Dujin snatches the phone from him and directly tells the boss to hurry up with the payment. The boss agrees to do so, but he simply requests the phone be handed back to his employee, returning it with pleasure. Dujin accidentally, or should I say intentionally, smashes the phone directly into the wall. The employee is shivering at the sight of his obliterated device, as Dujin instructs him to quickly prepare the money. Now that things have been made crystal clear, and that is how the receptionist prepared numerous bags filled with cash for the transaction. By the end, the guy is left completely devastated at being coerced in such a way. Perhaps you guys feel some pity for him, but remember, he continues to scam nearly half the earnings that ordinary heroes make, after risking their very lives. He is truly a scumbag. 10 minutes passed, and the boss quickly arrived at his store, enraged as to why his employee was not answering the phone. The hilarious part is that the receptionist immediately throws in the towel and tenders his immediate resignation from the job. The boss then sees the man's phone smashed into the wall, giving him a very good idea of what had just transpired. Seeing this, he pulls out his own phone to call Ju-Yun, requesting that she come to the store at once. Ju-Yun appears to be a famous young woman with beautiful purplish-pink hair. She is so recognizable in public that people are chanting her name, Hyun Ju-Yun, and treating her like a major celebrity. Not to mention, she looks absolutely stunning in that outfit. She arrives at the store and stuns the receptionist with her very presence, offering him a pleasant greeting with a warm smile. There's a very good reason why everyone is making such a big deal about her. She is the country's 4th S-rank hero in the official line. Nothing short of incredible. People have started rumors that she is the niece of the boss, but that then makes him wonder what she is doing here. Confirming these claims, Ju-yeon expresses that she was summoned here on behalf of her uncle's request to take care of a so-called reckless hero. Intrigued by the entire situation, the stylish S-ranker takes a seat, ready to hear what is truly going on. In the next scene, we can find our hero with his absolutely shredded physique, meditating out in the warm sunlight. It is true that he has been hunting for an entire day, and yet the rewards he reaped from it were not impressive at all. With the way things are currently progressing, he is growing concerned about the future. First and foremost, he needs to reach a level where he can clear S-rank gates by himself. That means he must train to restore his original immense strength. You heard that right. Ladies and gentlemen, it is training our time. Doo-jin's greatest challenge in this new life is that, unlike in his previous world, the mana density of this one is incredibly thin. This means that even if he does his absolute best to gather mana at his current rate, it will take 3 years at a minimum to even come close to his original power. Even longer if things become difficult. On the bright side, he could aim for better equipment for his battles. But the issue with that is, even the most mediocre equipment easily costs hundreds of millions. So that would be a complete waste of money. Suddenly, an icy chill runs down his spine as he senses the presence of someone incredibly dangerous. Fixating his gaze on Eun-young, he grabs the little girl with lightning speed and demands that everyone get inside immediately. Once back inside, he seals the room, while his grandmother anxiously questions what has happened. The entire structure shakes with a powerful tremor, making his grandmother flinch and question in terror if they're experiencing an earthquake. Little Eun-young is in a state of sheer panic. But the truth is something only our protagonist knows. This is not just a simple earthquake. It's something else entirely. Doo-jin senses a sharp and violent energy outside. A rift has just torn open into their world, and it just so happens to have manifested directly above their house. Rushing to deal with the immediate problem, he tells his loved ones to remain inside, as the situation outside is far too dangerous for them. At full speed, he plunges into the entrance of the rift, where the last thing he hears are the desperate cries of his grandmother and his sister calling out his name. The scene switches to the Seoul Hero Association, where its members are immediately put on high alert at the sudden emergence of a rift above the Mapo region. It appeared 63 days after the last emergence. Realizing that the White Lion Guild is the closest to the Mapo district, the manager wants his staff to contact the guild at once and alert all nearby heroes to join in and control the situation. Upon closer inspection of the rift's exact location, he discovers that the rift appeared directly above a residential home. This is a very tricky situation, even for them, because if by some off chance a civilian enters the rift, they are practically guaranteed to meet their demise. Not to mention, the rift will not allow anyone else to enter after that point, and if the person inside dies, it will unleash a wave of rampaging monsters in 10 days' time, causing untold chaos and destruction for the people living in the region. The monster wave would become so uncontrollable that the safety of Seoul will be completely jeopardized. The manager is curious about the person who interacted with and entered the rift. It turns out that they know CEO Doo-jin has taken action, as he is the resident of the home in question. According to his grandmother, he entered the rift to protect his family. From this piece of information, they are under the impression that he is not a registered hero, and that greatly complicates things, because the chances of an ordinary civilian returning from a rift are next to impossible. This causes the entire staff to feel a wave of despair and utter helplessness regarding the situation, as they can do nothing for the next 10 days. We then find Doo-jin's furious stepmother, annoyed upon hearing the news of his new awakening. She simply cannot believe her ears. Her assistant reports that, while he has not officially registered with the Hero Association yet, they have come to verify that he is indeed now an awakened individual from his last gate experience. This news makes her incredibly frustrated, because Kang Chul-woo was supposed to finish the job, and instead, it only made her target even stronger. Going absolutely ballistic, she smacks her fist on the table, questioning why the hell they couldn't just manage to kill the boy on their own. The fact that they also took her money for a failed job is also a reason for her to be so angry. Roaring at Manager Lee, she declares her frustrations with Kong Chul-woo by sending him a message. If he does not kill Do-jin personally, he will owe her 10 times the original amount in return. But to her utter surprise, her assistant surprisingly reveals that they may not even need to contact the man anymore. He shares the discovery of the new rift directly on top of Do-jin's house, having confirmed that he has entered the rift. It is a certainty that he will not be making it out alive. Hong Hee-ju is elated to hear this news, and the implication that he will not be returning alive. She calms down, appearing normal for the first time. She tells her assistant to monitor the situation until they receive more news. As for our hero, he has just arrived in the Rift domain. It is a forest, in fact. It is the very same forest he once used to enjoy his youth in while taking a rest. The forest of Petit SWA is exactly the same in its reconstruction, down to the very last detail of how he remembers it. Even the rich mana within it carries the same weight. Following the familiar pathway, he smiles at his reunion with the all-powerful world tree. This tree exudes mana in its most pure and potent form, the most divine structure, and the very core of the world's stability. So much so that when the old world finally fell, it all began when this tree was incinerated to the ground, forever corrupting the flow of mana. However, within this rift dimension, the tree is perfectly fine, just as he remembers it, though he is unaware of the cause. One thing is for certain. He now has a chance to reclaim the mana he lost by absorbing it directly from the tree, meditating beneath the incredible flow of mana. Our hero is getting his strength back clearer and clearer. He spent more than 3 days sitting in this exact position, forgetting to eat or drink or tend to any of his bodily needs. 10 entire days passed, and all he could focus on was harmonizing his breathing. By the end of the 10th night, trouble came looking for him and disrupted his sacred meditation. These alien-like creatures are called the Vulcan, and they have come to burn the tree, just as they did so long ago in the past. Only this time, our hero is there to prevent that tragedy from happening once again. The creatures lunge forth to attack him, while Do-jin regrets being unable to wield a water element sword to knock them all down with relative ease. The flaming monsters roar as they make their way toward him, but our boy is now replenished with so much mana that he no longer even requires a weapon. He is the weapon, and those hands are rated E for everyone. Extending his hand toward the fiery monsters, he exerts so much authority from his mana alone that it knocks down one of the creatures. The second creature is stunned by this incredible ability. Let's break down what just happened a moment ago. What he did there is called a mana release, and not exactly telekinesis. It is a blaster-type attack that uses raw mana as a concussive strike. It had been a very long time since he used this ability in such a way, considering he was so low on reserves all this time. Anyway, the Vulcan creatures are not finished just yet. To retaliate, they release charge blasts from their mouths in return. These pulsing laser beams quickly make their way to our boy, appearing the calmest he has ever been. His mana alone is more than enough to protect him from any damage. Stepping towards the creatures while ignited with a burst of mana, he remarks that he has finally protected the sacred world tree, and now he is ready to play for a little while and enjoy the fruits of his arduous training. The ugly beasts are attempting another energy blast attack, but our boy quickly grabs 2 of them and forces their mouths shut. This way, their own ability charges up and explodes inside their mouths, leaving behind only a headless, flaming corpse. The corpses of the creatures then wither away, dropping 2 valuable magic stones for him to collect. But that is just a couple of them down. Do-jin is enjoying his newfound power, thrilled to have unlocked something called the Eternal Ember. Carving a path of destruction, he decimated the remaining monsters, a predator's grin on his face. He was thrilled to claim a legendary haul of mana stones from their corpses. The relentless, one-sided massacre continued until none were left standing. Truly, Do-jin had struck a veritable jackpot with the sheer number of stones they yielded. Amidst the spoils, he discovered a single, coin-like seed radiating a golden light. This was the legendary artifact known as the Eternal Ember, as he claimed it within his grasp. With this, he had reclaimed dominion over more of his latent power. He then crushes the artifact, unleashing its dormant flames. The way he casually manipulates this primordial ember is reminiscent of the king of curses himself. Now, in any normal circumstance, the logical strategy would be to continue absorbing mana from the divine world tree. However, his current mortal vessel had reached its absolute physical limit for mana absorption. The second method, however, involves absorbing the ember itself completely. This will alter his very nature, transmuting his essence into fire mana. And he does precisely that, as his body erupts with pure flame energy. Now, it's unfortunate that in his former life, he had absolutely no reason to do this, and he disregarded the eternal ember entirely. But now, it is imperative for him to fully assimilate these embers, and it requires a full 10 minutes just to process a single one. Luckily for him, he has a massive collection of these waiting for him. So his mission now is to absorb as many as he possibly can. The rift's appearance has ignited a firestorm of public fascination. Hordes of reporters have descended upon our hero's home, creating a spectacle, while agents and association staff form a perimeter securing the area. Bang Song-gu is absolutely furious, all because of one man's foolishness in entering the rift prematurely. I must point out, he looks like a direct copy of a certain guild master from another famous manhwa, but with a better haircut. I suppose we also have our protagonist's alternate, but with blue hair. This man is named Kim Hyun-woo, and he sympathizes with Do Jin's desperate actions to save his family. But Song-gu doesn't believe that excuse for a second. He accuses our hero of rushing in like a greedy fool, completely unprepared for the dire consequences. It would have been one thing if he'd just died in a normal fashion, but if he perishes inside the rift, the location will become a detonation point, unleashing a torrent of monsters upon the world. And that is the real problem here. Hyun-woo asks for the guildmaster's opinion, and apparently, the guildmaster has ordered them to simply follow standard procedure. Hyun-woo questions the recent surge of rift emergences, appearing simultaneously across the globe, in various nations like the US and China, Switzerland, Turkey, and the United Kingdom. That is one reason why the guildmaster is struggling to manage so many crises at once. This type of phenomenon is not a common occurrence, and yet, some of the other nations were able to contain the threat with ease. But as for South Korea, they're furious about this situation because their predicament could very well devolve into a catastrophe, all because of one man. Song-ho is so infuriated that he wants to personally beat the fool who went inside and is praying the rift spits him back out. Speaking of the colossal purple gateway, 28 days have now passed since its initial appearance. The same amount of time Do Jin has been trapped inside. Now, the Hero Association is becoming afraid and has already designated the threat as a level 1 monster wave. Do Jin's true identity has not been revealed to the public yet for privacy concerns, but they're calling him Ordinary Person S for now, while the rest of the world remains ignorant of Do Jin's identity. The boss of the Lone Shark organization quickly catches on and connects the dots. Even his right-hand man confirms the report, verifying the information regarding his involvement. Kim Young-gu serves as the trusted subordinate to President Hwang Chong-soo. Chong-soo is curious and wants to know Do Jin's chances of survival, of making it out of there in one piece. Yes, I said the phrase, as is the tradition of this channel. The One Piece is real. Moving on, the assistant is absolutely certain that an ordinary person has roughly less than a 1% chance of survival. But the mere mention of Do Jin being considered an ordinary person carves a cruel, amused smile onto Chong-soo's face. That very same regular, so-called person put his best men in the hospital for weeks. From the world's perspective, they are drastically underestimating the abilities of the lone civilian who ventured into the rift. Now, Chong-soo is also interested in the chances of survival for someone who is an awakened individual. For that scenario, his assistant believes that it would ultimately depend on the rank of the hero, and it's impossible to make a judgment call without accurate data. Even Chong-soo admits that. Fighting prowess is very different from pure survival instinct, which introduces a whole new level of complexity when you're trapped inside a rift, of all things. Anyway, one thing is certain, the bastard hasn't changed his wicked ways. Chong-soo wants to protect Do Jin's family, but not for any noble reasons. No, this scumbag intends to harvest and sell the organs of his loved ones in the event that he does not return. And even if he does, he will pin an enormous debt on him for his protection. This man is the very definition of a parasite. The scene transitions back to the ethereal world tree. Here, our hero is going full throttle into his training arc, as his entire body is now coursing with powerful flame mana. He has lost all track of how much time has passed, but he has been grinding relentlessly, absorbing hundreds of the fire stones. With this, he has acquired so much fire mana that he can now use and manipulate it in any way he sees fit. Not to mention, his resistance to flames has dramatically increased as a side effect. Comparing his past self with his current self based on fire attribute alone, he believes he has surpassed his former self in this small capacity. By mastering this one ability, embracing the world tree, he shares a quiet, tender moment with it. It has always served him in his time of greatest need, both in the distant past and even now, Because of this, Dujin is profoundly grateful for everything it has done for him. As for his collected mana stones, he has fashioned a small pouch using vines to store them all. With his treasures collected and stashed away, Dujin fully understands that he will likely never see this angelic tree ever again. But even so, he holds on to the hope that their paths will cross once more, if the divine tree ever finds itself in mortal danger again, because when that day comes, he will be ready to protect it with his very life. Now, I don't know about you all, but I truly, and I mean truly, enjoyed this beautiful, gentle scene. That night, Dujin finally steps out into the physical world once more, emerging from the rift as a whole. Luckily, he doesn't sense anyone in the immediate vicinity, suspecting that most people likely assumed he had already perished inside, and that a monster wave would erupt at any moment. However, he does detect the presence of someone powerful nearby. Deciding to track them down, he rushes to locate the source. Shortly after, he stumbles upon the two agents, one perpetually angry and the other more composed, both Hyunwoo and Sunggu from before. Now, he understands that these men probably represent the Hero Association based on their attire alone, which means on the off chance he gets captured, things will become exceedingly problematic. To combat this potential issue, he conjures a ball of pure flame and launches it into the air with a powerful, forceful lunge. That attack finds its target across a nearby building, resulting in a massive explosion upon detonation. Both Hyunwoo and Sunggu are on high alert the moment they hear the thunderous crash. Realizing that it is actually fire, they decide to pursue the source. There, they discover a crowd of people standing in utter horror. Sunggu demands to know what the hell is going on amidst the chaos. Meanwhile, our hero is quite impressed with his newfound flame power. So far, its precision is remarkable, so it will serve him well in the future. In memory of his old friend, known as Tusk, he wonders if the great mage would be impressed by his current mastery of flames. After all, Tusk was known as the most powerful fire mage on the entire continent, and they once shared a powerful bond. Suddenly, Hyunwoo's sharp senses alert him to look back toward the rift. It appears to be acting erratically, and right before their very eyes, it vanishes into thin air. Both of the agents rush to the site to investigate what has just happened. When they arrive, they can't believe that the rift's connection to their world is no more. As for our protagonist, he is simply making his way to his next destination without any issues. The news breaks the following morning concerning the state of the rift that had lasted for a full month. In Mapo, it is announced that the rift has disappeared, 29 days after CO Dujun entered the danger zone. This proves the concerns of the Hero Association to be completely wrong about the impending monster wave. They have no idea about the unexpected disappearance of the rift, and they're currently investigating what exactly happened. They also have trouble explaining the cause of the fire that broke out at the exact time of the rift's disappearance in a nearby junkyard. Now, this leads most people to believe that CO Dujun is dead, and that this is simply the consequence of his own foolish actions. Unbeknownst to them, our hero is hiding in plain sight, observing the conflicting opinions of the general public, as some are sympathizing with the young man who lost his life. Unfortunately, the disappearance of the rift is heartbreaking news for our protagonist. He is devastated that he can no longer interact with the World Tree. Even though he can no longer protect the World Tree, there's still one other thing he can protect in this life, which brings us right back to HCS Capital once again. Inside, the idiots are busy celebrating the supposed death of Dujin, believing they can now easily dispose of the old grandmother and his sister afterwards. Changsu is just the kind of man to squeeze people to death. After all, one of the scumbags is talking about how they should let the little sister grow up so they can use her in other, more despicable ways. While they are chatting without filtering their vile words, a familiar voice greets them and demands to see their boss. The scene cuts off right at that moment, and we then see Changsu humming and going about his day, satisfied that Dujin is finally out of his way and dead for good. His assistant reviews their schedule for the day. Apparently, he is free for the most part, except for a lunch meeting with another CEO. Hearing that, he is happy because tonight he can enjoy partying at a club under Madam Kang's management. It is all just senseless chatter until he steps inside the building, and as he is climbing the stairs, he finds his men being tossed around like rag dolls. Their blood is splattered everywhere, and the cause of it all is someone he presumed to be long dead. Our hero throws him to the ground and tells the filthy Changsu to crawl back to him like a dog. That bone, chilling order from him, has the president of the company quivering in fear. Our boy acts like the true leader of this group and assumes his rightful place in the chair. He then repeats his command to the ignorant Chang-su, who is still processing the weight of this shameful order. Without wasting another second, he crawls like a dog. Ruthless as ever, Do-jin then orders him a bark, as he deserves to be treated like the animal he is. His loud and clear utterance of the command has Chang-su whining in utter humiliation. It takes a moment for him to bark successfully, but our hero is not satisfied in the slightest. Our boy personally ensures he makes an animal out of him by forcing him to bark repeatedly for everyone to hear. The president is reduced to being less than human, just like the people he has treated so poorly. Do-jin points out that scumbags like him only act obedient on the surface, but end up backstabbing you the moment they find an opportunity, declaring his filthy name. He chillingly tells the man that he has plenty of experience dealing with second-rate humans like him, pleading and begging for mercy. Chang-su is prepared to serve like a loyal dog if necessary. But Do-jin has heard enough and whips a heavy slap across his face. Just that much force is enough to knock the wind out of the man and make him spurt out blood. His assistant watches the scene unfold until his name is finally called. Do-jin addresses him as the new boss of this company and recommends that he stop working under a bastard like Chang-su, knowing that these types of men are so ready to stab people in the back. He orders the assistant to kill Chang-su with his full permission. Of course, this is a task too heavy for a competent servant like him. He apologizes and objects by stating that their leader has a lot of powerful connections. So things will get incredibly bad if he is the one appointed the new boss, instead of Chang-su. On behalf of his boss, the assistant pleads with Do-jin to spare the man just one more time. However, Do-jin doesn't want to play around with simple words in front of it. He suggests wrapping Chang-su's body in a barrel and removing all the evidence by shoving it into the endless ocean. After all, it is just one of the things these men excel at doing, seeing as the boss's servants are unwilling to oblige. Our hero takes a different approach with them. Do-jin threatens the entire group that he will toss every one of them into a gate as monster food if they do not carry out this single order. Yes, the mere mention of that has Chang-su reduced to a pathetic mess. He cannot take it anymore and continues to beg for his life, promising that he will never betray and will always serve under Do-jin. Now, this puts our hero into a bit of a contemplative state. Although he could kill Chang-su right here and now and get rid of all his current issues, something about him has truly changed in this new life. Admitting it to himself, Do-jin has grown softer compared to his merciless past self. So, this time, he agrees, offering the man a hand. I just know Chang-su is about to become extremely religious after this, praying to God that he doesn't get on Do-jin's nerves ever again. He goes on to shake the hero's hand, promising to serve unconditionally from this moment forward. But wait, something seems strange. Why is his hand suddenly engulfed in scorching hot flames? Yes, though Do-jin has indeed gotten soft, he is still utterly ruthless, looking the man dead in the eye. He reminds the scumbag that this is his final chance. Indeed, Do-jin then proceeds to rip his hand clean off, reducing it to a charred, smoldering paste. By the end of their meeting, he walks away, ignoring the agonizing cries of the president. He does leave them with one final, dire warning. If even a single one of them tries to get in the way of his family ever again, Do-jin will personally ensure their deaths. As for their new job, they are now forever deemed responsible for protecting his family for the rest of their miserable lives. Now, that is how you properly handle traitors. Officially speaking, the man known as CO Do-jin was just a minor blip in existence that vanished along with the mysterious rift. In reality, he is actually dining at the local Wactonalds. The government, the Hero Association, and all kinds of media outlets quickly moved on from him like he was yesterday's news. They all treated the civilian who entered the rift as a dead man. Even if he came out and announced to the world that he was still alive, no one would ever believe it. Furthermore, surfacing after a solo rift mission would only bring him headaches and unwanted trouble. That subdued dog, Huang Chang-su, is currently assisting him in finding a new and suitable house, so he can afford to move leisurely for the time being. Do-jin finally got the chance to treat his sister to some delicious fast food. He also informed her of their plan to move out to a much better neighborhood, and she could not be any happier. She can now go to kindergarten, just like other kids her age, and enter elementary school the following year. When the topic of school came up, little Eun-young's mood suddenly took a turn for the worse. Do-jin was instantly alarmed. He is used to slaughtering abominable beasts, but comforting a child is not in his arsenal. He was taken aback when his sister confessed how the other children tease her for being an orphan. Hearing his adorable sister's plight completely broke big bro Do-jin's heart. If she does not want to associate with those mean children, she certainly doesn't have to. Those little bastards will get what is coming for them. Eventually, finding out that she wouldn't have to attend kindergarten to be bullied anymore, Eun-young was incredibly hyped inwardly. Doo-jin is now devising a plan to send his little sister to a prestigious private school where no one would ever dare to look down on her. That night, CEO Doo-jin discovered that Kim Young-gu had stashed his grandmother and sister in some random motel while he was trapped inside the rift. The glasses-wearing bastard almost broke his back trying to apologize. He reasoned that the motel is under the management of their company, so it is far safer than any other place. Doo-jin doesn't have the energy to mess with these lackeys tonight, so he just enters the room and sees his grandmother once more. Little Eun-young pounced on him with a massive bear hug, and his grandmother held his hand, with tears streaming from her eyes. She's just so glad to see her grandson come back alive. At first, the hardened warrior was completely stunned, but once he felt the genuine warmth coming from his family, he accepted the love they had for him with a warm smile. Little Eun-young has taken quite a liking to Wactonalds, so they have been dining in that absolutely real establishment a lot. Today, she asked questions about her big bro's job as a hero. When asked if she likes having a hero for an older brother, Eun-young nonchalantly answered that she does not. While it is cool that heroes are strong and powerful, they are also constantly in danger when fighting terrifying monsters. Sometimes they even die, and little Eun-young just wants her brother to live with her grandmother and herself for a long time. Doo-jin had become so used to mindless bloodshed that having someone genuinely worried about his well-being is quite a new feeling for him. In the harsh world of the past, he was the last surviving human. He fought monsters and creatures beyond your wildest nightmares. In the process, he lost a great many things. Now that he has been given a second chance in a different world, something incredibly precious has appeared by his side. Feelings he had long since forgotten are now coming back to the surface. In this world, perhaps he can truly live happily. Maybe he can just live a quiet life filled with joy and love, while he was feeling all fuzzy and warm on the inside. Korea's Hero Association was in complete shambles. Tawong, founder of the Korea Hero Association and director of the World Hero Federation, has been stressing over the recent rift incident, or rather, the lack thereof. Their best people have thoroughly investigated the site, but no new information has been discovered. Feeling clueless about the state of his own territory is deeply frustrating the founder. It is not far-fetched to believe that a spontaneously disappearing rift can potentially reappear at any given time. His assistant tried to agree with his valid worries. She thought it would have been better if a monster wave had actually occurred. At least then, they would not have to worry about unknown variables. Director Tae-wong cuts her off before he gets any angrier. While he is worried about these uncertainties, he thinks it is fortunate that no one was ultimately harmed. Tae-wong is one of the top 100 most respected and powerful heroes in the entire world. It is widely speculated that he would be easily elected, with the most votes in history, if he ever ran for president. His words and influence could easily topple domestic conglomerates, if he so desired. Thankfully, his interests lie in neither the power of a nation's leader, nor the wealth of a major conglomerate. The only thing he truly cares about is the safety of his people. In other words, he is a real one, even if it takes some more time. He wants a more thorough investigation covering the rift's entire perimeter. The residents around the nearby area have already agreed to sell their properties to the association, so that should not be a problem. As a form of consolation, Tae-wong wants to offer those people more than the market price for their respective homes. That is the least they can do after causing such an inconvenience. All reliable sources have relayed that multiple rifts have occurred in many different countries. No matter how you look at the situation, something major must be going on. The United States and China have already entered the control stages of their respective rifts. Among the major nations, the United Kingdom is facing the biggest problem. While reliable and veteran heroes have been dispatched to clear the other rifts, the United Kingdom squad was simply complete and utter garbage. Speaking of them, the month-long mission to get rid of the UK rift has finally crumbled. In a glaring defeat, the UK rift wave occurrence has officially begun. The city and its people are going about their daily lives as they normally would. Amongst the crowd was CEO Doo-jin, blending in seamlessly with the pedestrians. Today, his destination is his favorite shop in the entire hero complex. When he entered through the door, the man manning the counter gave him a greeting out of pure instinct, but choked upon seeing his familiar face. Every single hair on his body stood on end in sheer terror upon seeing the black-haired young man once again. Today, his manager is also in the store, so he will not have to deal with this sadistic customer all by himself. The manager promptly closed the newspaper he was reading and lifted his gaze. His voice was controlled, but was tinted with anger. This is the young man who's been forcing his pushover cashier into buying low-grade crystals. Doo-jin lazily removed his backpack and tossed the entire thing onto the ground. It is actually good that the manager is here. so the sale of his magic crystals will proceed much faster. Mr. Manager expected another batch of low-grade crystals to spill onto the floor. He is not interested in such small-time business dealings. Doojin does not like being turned away when all he wants is a fair trade. The manager, or any other sane business owner, cannot possibly afford to accept just a 1% commission fee. It would be much better if the young man just left. Doojin asserted that refusing to do business with him would be a massive mistake, one that Mr. Manager would come to regret. The manager continued shooing the young man away, not even bothering to look inside the bag. This is the final warning he will give before things truly go down. In response, Doojin kicked the backpack to the ground, spilling its entire contents onto the tiles. Being experienced crystal traders, both the cashier and the manager immediately recognized the unique properties of those stones. That crude bag was actually filled with Hero's magic crystals, a legendary treasure that money simply cannot buy. Doojin has a rough idea of how much these things are truly worth. He knows that he is holding premium-grade stuff. You see, the Hero's magic crystal was used by an infamous Mexican drug lord, Quarzaman, in New Age drug manufacturing. One night, a laboratory accident changed the entire course of his life and the world's perspective on this little rock. The Hero's magic crystal caused Quarzaman to awaken as a powerful hero. Since that day, the crystal has become a priceless item for hero awakenings and for mana enhancement. Such an incredibly rare energy source can be classified as an ultra-high-end product, as a massive power move. Doojin ordered the schmucks to pack his stuff back up, and then he left. Mr. Manager quickly changed his dismissive and arrogant tone into a much more welcoming one. He even escorted the young man to their exclusive VIP seats and offered some drinks while his cashier polished the crystals. Doojin liked reversing the situation completely on its head. 1 second, he was being driven away from his store, and the next, he was sipping on some iced beverage. His opening demand was full price, with a 0.5% commission rate. As soon as the manager expressed a sign of balking, he threatened to pull the entire deal. In prior trades, Doojin had agreed to a 1% commission. Now, he is lowering that already abysmal rate even lower. Frankly, he is just doing that now out of sheer annoyance. In response, the manager lowered his head and tried to give the most sincere apology he could possibly muster. Well, Doojin is tired of hearing their empty apologies. They can either accept his rate or he will take his business elsewhere. It is just that simple. At the counter, the cashier is inwardly cursing Doojin for being such a rude prick. Seeing that, his acting would not convince the kid to give him a bigger cut. The manager locked in and gave a lengthy lecture about the magic crystal, markets, and their pricing. Doojin has no time to listen to such long-winded yapping, though. He finished his drink and got up from his seat, making the manager panic, feeling the deal of a lifetime slipping away from his very fingers. The manager offered a 9% commission. It did not work, so he then proposed 8%. This continued from 8 to 7. 6, and then 5%. In this range, his shop will not be making any profit at all. While the manager is in the absolute pits of despair, CO Doojin pounces and agrees to settle for a 1% commission out of respect for their previous dealings together. Inwardly, the manager wanted to scream and curse this blatant extortionist. He just cannot bear to let go of this incredible product. The next words that came out of Doojin's mouth nearly made the manager piss his pants in sheer excitement. Aside from the one bag he brought today, he has about 7 more bags of those priceless crystals. With that being said, the contract was quickly produced and then signed. After a few minutes of officiating the new deal, 67 billion won entered CO Doojin's bank account. That's about 48 million US dollars. At this rate, his 110 billion won house does not seem so far off. The problem is that getting more high-grade magic crystals through normal gates is a massive time sink. If he could only find a way to freely travel through the rift zones, he could easily farm these treasures like an absolute madman. While looking at his phone screen, an administrative message was sent out to everyone in the entire country. The wave outbreak in the southern region of the United Kingdom had been finally announced to the general public. In the meantime, everyone is banned from traveling to the UK. After reading about a real problem in the real world, Doojin lost all interest in messing with the manager of the shop. In the past, no matter the country or which association was involved, he might have intervened to seal the rift all by himself. But he's not that same man anymore. He now has more fulfilling matters to attend to tonight. Dinner is on Doojin, and they're getting expensive meat. Little Eunyoung's mouth watered at the sight of the pork and beef, marbling over the hot grill. The expensive meat and succulent side dishes just kept on coming to their table, worried that they were spending far too much, given the price tag on the restaurant's menu. Grandma slowed down and asked her grandson if all this was okay. 250,000 won for 100 grams of meat is pretty steep. Doojin dismissed her worries right away. After making an absolute killing with his crystal harvest, they could eat as much as they possibly wanted, and it wouldn't even make a dent in his massive bank account. Eun-young's very first bite made her fall in love. With the taste of this wildly luxurious beef, Do-jin continued adding more and more to the grill, as his grandmother watched in pure apprehension. Hell, there's another package of fresh ribs, prime rib, a strip loin, and skirt meat coming to their table soon. At this point, the sheer scale of it is just ridiculous. How could 2.5 people even finish that much food? Well, Grandma is severely underestimating the appetite of a true protagonist. To knock her out of her constant worries, little Eun-young convinced her grandma to give the expensive stuff a try. Unable to refuse the offer of her sweet little girl, Grandma caved. One bite of that expensive meat was all it took for all her worries to completely dissipate into nothing. Afterward, the happy family enjoyed their extravagant dinner together, filled with warm smiles and genuine laughter. Unbeknownst to Do-jin, an attention-grabbing young woman had just entered the restaurant. The necks of the other guests almost broke wherever she happened to pass by. Do-jun's path was boldly intercepted by her decisive call. She claimed to only need a brief moment of his valuable time. A simple parley, or so it seemed on the surface. But before her intentions could be fully revealed, Do-jun shut her down for the audacity of interrupting his family dinner. If she had something that desperately needed to be said, she would have to wait until this sacred meal was finished. Hyun-ju-yeon played her trump card, a simple name card, hoping the weight of her legendary name would shatter his arrogant tone. To her utter shock, Do-jin remained unfazed, grilling and devouring me. He treated her esteemed presence as if it were just thin air. And thus, the world-famous S-rank hunter had to swallow her pride and was relegated to the restaurant's common waiting room. With a superstar of her caliber in the vicinity of normal people, she instantly commanded the room, becoming its undeniable focal point. Every man and woman there couldn't help but steal glances at the woman, who stood at the very apex of the hero world. She's not merely fourth in the nation's S-class hero rankings. Countless people would easily place her among the top 10 most beautiful heroes on the entire planet. The same question echoed silently in the minds of every civilian. Just who on earth could make the great Hyun-ju-yeon wait? Ignoring the growing chorus of whispers all around her, Ju-yeon replayed the tense confrontation from just moments before. Her intel stated CEO, Do-jun had entered his first gate merely 2 months prior. He somehow survived and is now suspected of having undergone an awakening. The official reports declared him deceased in the recent Mapo Rift disaster. Yet here he stood, very much alive and feasting with his family, beyond all the details that defied logic and reason. A single piercing glare from that young man had an S-ranker like her on high alert. A freshly awakened rookie ascending to S rank in less than 2 months is impossible, right? Not even the oil magnate Kathmore, who burned his fortune on countless magic stones, took nearly 5 months to reach that legendary summit. Trying to make sense of the aura, she fell. Ju-yeon concluded Do-jin must possess some kind of undocumented and extraordinary ability. Finally, Do-jin's grandmother and the young Eun-young emerged, their bellies completely full, and their spirits soaring high near the restaurant exit. Yu-yeon swiftly approached, ready to finally hold a dialogue with this enigmatic young man. But before a single word could escape her lips, another group strode into the restaurant, radiating an air of arrogant superiority. Do-jin's gaze sharpened, becoming deadlier than ever at the sight of this man. This disgusting-looking scumbag certainly didn't expect to find Seo Do-jin breathing and well after their fateful encounter in that deadly gate. The certifiable madman, Kang Chul-woo. He seemed genuinely amused by Daijun's cockroach-like tenacity. Even the great Ju-yeon appeared to recognize this infamous troublemaker instantly, right there in the center of the restaurant. An oppressive tension mounted as a heavy silence descended. Daejun elected to ignore the scumbag's pathetic taunts entirely, and instead summoned Ju-yeon to his side. Kang Chul-woo was visibly stunned to see an S-rank hero conversing with a cockroach. Do-jin made a request for her to watch over his family for just a moment. Her only task was to hail a taxi so they could depart safely and go home. It would be far more convenient if they were a safe distance away, while he proceeded to collect a long overdue debt from this mongrel. Fortunately for him, Hyun-ju-yeon proved to be an exceptionally reasonable woman. She complied with Do-jin's request and calmly assured the grandmother and the little girl that all would be fine. She waved them a warm goodbye, but the worry on their faces was impossible to hide. Ju-yeon stood awkwardly as the taxi finally drove away. The second they were clear of the restaurant's premises, a sharp, resounding crack of a slap violently echoed through the entire establishment. With his cherished loved ones out of harm's way, Dojin could finally drop the family-friendly facade and smack a fool. He moved with such blinding speed that Chulwoo never even saw the swing. He only registered the searing, agonizing pain on his cheek. Mortified by such a profoundly humiliating strike, Chulwoo ground his teeth in rage and charged forward to strike back. One of the waitresses foolishly tried to intervene in the brawl, terrified that the awakened ones might demolish the entire building if their brutal conflict continued to escalate. Her plea for reason was met with utterly unreasonable violence. Luckily, she managed to escape without serious injury. CEO Do Jun calmly instructed everyone else to get out. They needed to evacuate the room for their own safety. Chulwoo is laughably easy to provoke. He's a muscle-bound simpleton who can't even string together a decent insult. For his pathetic attempt, he was rewarded with another fist to the face. He was blindsided by the devastating impact, feeling knuckles connect solidly with his skull. Kong Chulwoo. He is the very scum who trapped the original CEO, Du Jin, inside a gate, abandoning him to a certain death. Even though he wasn't the direct victim, our MC still holds a burning, deep-seated hatred for this worthless filth, and he intends to make Chulwoo talk. The goblin-faced henchman began to snicker as he brought up how that wicked stepmother of Dojin's orchestrated the entire assassination attempt. Seeing that, prying information from this blabbering idiot was far simpler than he imagined. Dojin pulled out his phone and casually pressed the record button on the video camera. All he needed was one clear, undeniable recording of a confession, and his path forward would become significantly less complicated. Once more, Chulwoo was enraged by his opponent's complete nonchalance. He channeled immense power into his clenched fist, called Dojin's mother a whore, and attacked with unrestrained fury. He planned to finally finish the job that he had failed before. He wanted to erase CEO Dojin from existence, once and for all. Unfortunately for the brainless goon, his brutish and primitive attacks were no match against the expert energy manipulation of CEO Dojin. He met the ferocious punch with a deceptively gentle touch and sent the attacker's fist flying wildly off course, as if it had just collided with an unbreakable, perfectly elastic barrier. Kong Chulwoo had never encountered anything like this in his life. Typically, he could just overwhelm anything and everything with sheer brute force to secure a kill. Now it was clear he was going up against a power far beyond what his minuscule, tiny little pea brain could possibly fathom. Suddenly, he was thrown off balance. Du Jun followed his body's helpless trajectory, like a fearsome predator toying with its doomed prey. The sickening sound of fists cracking bone echoed throughout the restaurant as the waitress from before desperately fumbled to dial the police. But before she could press the final call button, a graceful hand gently took the phone away from her with a reassuring smile. Hyun Ju Yun promised the server that she would handle everything personally, so there was absolutely no reason to bring the authorities into this. The waitress was just relieved to see a comforting presence in the midst of her terrified breakdown. Slaps, scrapes, and brutal punches rained down all over Kong Chulwoo's body, giving him zero opportunity to even catch his breath. As far as Ju Yun knew, this lowlife was a registered B-rank hero. With a rank like that, there were very few individuals who could beat him down so utterly and helplessly. Judging by this one-sided beatdown, Dojin could possibly be an A-ranker. But even if that were the case, this fight still felt far too lopsided to make sense. Before the situation could escalate any further, Hyun Ju Yun carefully called out to Dojin, asking him to stop for a sec. She was genuinely concerned that Kong Chulwoo might actually die if this relentless pummeling continued for any longer. Heeding her warning, for now, he dropped the goblin goon's broken body onto the floor and dusted off his hands. Seeing the clear and violent history between the two men, Jin inquired of the young man just how much he really knows about Kong Chulwoo. Dujin might not have the entire story yet, but he knew more than enough about the scumbag to deliver his vengeance. Hyun Jin cautioned him that this piece of trash, Kong Chulwoo, has deep ties to Kong Yong-pyo, another powerhouse S-rank hero. Well, Dujin was already aware of that connection and saw no issue with it. Jin had never encountered someone so unbelievably reckless and insane. This man has zero concern for whatever dire consequences he might face at the hands of a mighty S-ranker. Hyun Jin further explained that Kong Yong-pyo is fiercely protective of his degenerate cousin. This bloody restaurant incident is guaranteed to reach that powerhouse's ears. And when that day comes, blood will surely be shed. Du Jin scoffed dismissively at Ju Yun's concerns. He is the absolute last person on earth who would fear some arrogant S-ranker, more than any problems looming in the future. He was much more irritated that Ju Yun knew so much about his personal life. Now that the Goblin Goon was dealt with, Dojin's hostility shifted entirely onto the meddlesome S-ranker. Face to face, the feral young man stared her down with intensity. But Hyunjuin was no pushover by any stretch of the imagination. She wouldn't buckle under the pressure of a simple, intimidating stare down, pivoting the conversation. She apologized for her sudden appearance and finally revealed her true objective. She was merely sent by her uncle to come here and negotiate with him. After she discovered the massive bag of heroic magic crystals he had previously sold, Jian wanted to acquire the rest of his supply. She was prepared to purchase every last piece that he owned, regardless of the price tag. Dojin warned her that it would not come cheap. He has a vast collection of precious treasures in his possession. After all, she confidently assured him that the wealth of a well-established S-rank hero is far beyond a normal person's comprehension. Well, it's not as if he was against selling off his valuable wares. He just had a single condition before they could make a deal. It was nothing too demanding, really. Just a minor favor, at least for someone as legendary as Hyunju. That is, elsewhere, in another part of the city, the sound of expensive liquor bottles shattering against the floor could be heard. Dojin's wicked stepmother was having a complete meltdown after receiving new intel about her supposedly deceased stepson. Her underlings had been so certain that the boy had perished in the rift, and yet, now she was getting reports of how Dojin had survived, like some unkillable cockroach. A moment of silence for this bald man here. Serving a volatile boss like her could not possibly be enjoyable, but you can't exactly blame him for the bad information. Even the official Hero Association had declared Dojin dead, but the evil stepmother has no time for pathetic excuses. She demands results and immediate action instead. To compound her problems, they had just gotten news of Kong Chul Wu's utter defeat at the hands of Dujin. At this point, it was perfectly safe to assume that Co Dujin was now aware of who was truly behind his attempted murder. Hearing that she might be exposed, the evil stepmom swallowed a lump of pure terror. She wasn't afraid of Dojin himself. She was far more worried about the chaos that would erupt when her father or husband discovered her secret dealings. She could bury almost anything, but if this scandal leaked to the media, her company's stock price would plummet into oblivion. So she commanded her people to control the media narrative. If they fail this mission, T Group and W Group would undoubtedly sever all deals and advertisements. First and foremost, the police had to be on their side of the payroll. In that specific matter, the evil stepmom's agents had already mobilized to cover their tracks. Knowing her underlings had a sliver of competence alleviated some of the immense pressure from her shoulders. The bald director, Lee, then whispered that no matter how many cover-up operations they launched, what they were doing was not a permanent solution to the actual problem. On that subject, the bald director just might have a scheme that could end this entire headache. They just need to exploit Kong Chul Wu's powerful cousin, the infamous Kong Young Pyo. Even a corporate player like the stepmom knows of that S-ranker's reputation. Kong Chul Wu might be known as absolute trash in the hero world, but it is common knowledge how incredibly close he is to his powerful cousin. In truth, Kong Chul Wu is nothing more than a pawn, carrying out all sorts of dirty jobs under his cousin's direct command. They are both twisted individuals. If Chul Wu is arrested by police and dragged through the mud by the media, it won't be a very good look for the S-rank hero either. In fact, he has already begun taking measures to contain this public relations nightmare. The evil stepmom made her decision. She demanded a meeting with Kong Young Pyo at the earliest possible moment. Furthermore, that pathetic dog, Huang Chan-sub of HCS Capital, has openly sided with the enemy. He is currently protecting Du Jin's family for that betrayal. The stepmom wants a prosecutor on the line in 1 minute. Those who dare to abandon her side will pay the ultimate price in full. On the very next day, we witness a squad of heroes entering one of the 37 rift zones in Korea. Among those dangerous rift zones, 5 have been converted into secured gates. The remainder can only be entered by heroes tied to hero associations, with meticulously planned schedules. Today, Miss Hyunju herself is commanding a team. With her S-rank identification, she has virtually unlimited access to any gate among the diverse assembly of heroes. Outfitted with state-of-the-art equipment and weaponry, stood one young man cloaked in a worn-out hoodie. Hyunjin selected A-rank Jong In-ju's Cleomi Guild as a temporary party for this particular monster hunt. It is an extremely rare honor to join an S-ranker's hunt, so they were beyond excited. Jian explained that she just wanted to do something enjoyable and stretch her muscles out for a little while. In reality, she was forced to orchestrate this entire elaborate situation just to grant the young man in the back a clean entrance to the gate. Co Dujin had consented to sell the remainder of his magic crystal hoard at the standard market price to Ju Yun. if she would grant him access into the restricted rift zone. He simply desires to earn more money by hunting within higher level zones. While it's undeniable that rift zones contain all kinds of treasures, venturing into such a dangerous one for a chance at profit, completely without fear, is simply utter madness. Well, she didn't truly care one way or another. All that mattered was getting her hands on those heroic magic crystals. After several minutes of navigating a pitch-black tunnel, the hunting party finally emerged on the other side into a sunlit forest. Unable to contain her burning curiosity, Inju began pestering Juyin about the true identity of the mysterious young man who was tailing their party. Juyin just presented Dojin as an acquaintance, but absolutely nobody was buying that half-hearted explanation. Inju wildly guessed that he might be the legendary queen, Juyin's boyfriend. Exhausted by all the incessant questions, she gave Inju a partial truth and admitted that the mysterious young man was here because she owed him a significant favor. It's not every day you hear that an S-rank hero is indebted to someone. While the party members were lost in their own separate conversations, a colossal shadow suddenly blotted out the sun from high above. Everyone immediately looked towards the sky and saw the monstrous beast. Being a professional A-rank guild, the Cleome heroes reacted instantly, drawing their formidable weapons and moving into their well-practiced battle formations. Their very first encounter was with none other than the dreaded cockatrices. Like the veteran raider, she was Zhu Yun seized command, barking out clear and concise orders. Jinju and Doyen were assigned to defensive positions, while Sungho was tasked with targeting its legs. But before she could even finish assigning roles to everyone, a lone figure became a blur as he shot past the entire party. With a single, earth-shattering leap, he instantly closed the vast aerial gap between himself and the flying beast. CEO Du Jun completely ignored the long-winded group strategy and launched himself into a one-on-one duel with the giant bird. The Cleome heroes were utterly slack-jawed. They had never witnessed anyone so brazenly reckless. Gathering volatile energy in his fist, Dojin prepared to draw the very first blood. Just before his charge, Guildmaster Inju was stressing over her terrible luck. They had barely even stepped foot inside the gate, and an extremely difficult opponent had already made its appearance. Before the party could even fully assemble and get into formation, Dujin had already dropped his supply bag to the dusty ground, while Juyun was still calling out strategic commands. He was already blasting through the air like a speeding cannonball. He was an absolute demon of pure speed. In a single jump, he completely nullified the bird's aerial superiority. High up in the sky, he seized total control of the battlefield without issue. His fiery aura was dense and intensely burning. The overgrown chicken possessed neither the speed nor the reaction time needed to block the devastating incoming attack. As a consequence, it was forced to eat a full power punch directly to its beak. The beast was on the ground, and the human was soaring in the clouds. It was a beautifully poetic and sudden role reversal. Dojin landed gracefully in front of the stun group. He hadn't even managed to break a single tiny bead of sweat. The cockatrice lay on the verge of utter annihilation, the clear imprint of his fist visible on the side of its face. The entire Cleome guild stood there utterly speechless, alongside their powerful S-rank team leader. They were all forced to witness the sheer brutality of what transpired next. Dujin raised his leg and began mercilessly stomping on the bird's head until it was nothing more than a bloody meat paste. It might have seemed like excessive force, but killing a cockatrice requires an immense amount of power. With every stomp and every brutal kick, the sound of skulls shattering and blood gushing absolutely horrified the group. Now, Inju was intensely curious about who that man truly was. In all honesty, Ju Yun wasn't entirely certain herself. All she knew for sure was that CO Dojin is an unbelievably powerful human. Well, calling him simply strong is a massive understatement. There are only a handful of elite heroes who can do what Dojin just did. Annihilating a cockatrice with a single blow is no ordinary accomplishment. Ju Yun tried to downplay the feat by mentioning her own sister, noting that woman belongs to that exclusive list of legendary heroes. Still, Inju couldn't get over the fact that a hidden powerhouse was standing among them. She had watched the entire fight unfold and was in absolute awe the entire time. Ju Yun made a mental note of the young man's monstrous power and lethal decisiveness, her curiosity about him deepening by the second. She turned to Inju and announced a sudden change of plans. For the time being, she wanted to head to the center with just Dujin, leaving the rest of the guild to hunt on the outskirts. Jiyun cautiously approached the young man, who was expertly carving up the cockatrice's carcass for its loot. Before she could even utter a word, He preemptively declared that he wouldn't share loot with people who did absolutely nothing to contribute to the kill. Thankfully, Jian is not the type to covet a few pieces of magic crystals. She just came over to suggest that they venture a bit deeper into the gate, to go somewhere more dangerous and suitable for his immense abilities. With a grin, he readily accepted her invitation to hunt and loot even more. Jian knows the topography of this particular gate quite well, so she announced she would be taking the lead. All Dojin had to do was follow her closely so he wouldn't get lost. Without any warning, she blasted off into the distance, her incredible speed creating a powerful sonic boom. Dojin calmly watched as her figure completely disappeared over the horizon. After slinging his now heavy bag over his back, he took a runner's stance, channeling explosive energy into his muscles. With a single, instantaneous first step, he kicked up a shockwave that nearly blew the Cleome Guild heroes off their feet. Inge mused that if Ju Yun moves like a bullet, then that mysterious man moves like light itself. Abandoned by the two unfathomable powerhouses, the remaining miscellaneous heroes turned to their guild leader to devise their new plan of action, of course. Attempting to follow those two monsters ahead is completely and utterly impossible. They must come to terms with the fact that they are just sidekicks and small fries. Nevertheless, this is still a very lucrative game, with more than enough monsters to hunt around the peripheral areas. In the outside world, normal people hail them as powerful A-rank heroes, but when standing before a true S-ranker, they are not even worthy of a mention. Ju Yun and that man are on a completely different level than the entire Cleome Guild. Speaking of those two, their high-speed race across the forest was progressing with incredible haste, while holding a breakneck pace without much visible effort. Ju Yun kept glancing to her side for any sign of Dojin. Upon seeing no trace of the mysterious guy, she began to relax her pace slightly, thinking that perhaps she had overdone her initial burst of speed, just as she was considering slowing down. Dojin suddenly materialized right beside her, casually asking if they could possibly go a little bit faster. Jiyun's concentration shattered, and she nearly tripped over her own feet. She had never in her life experienced anything like this before. Someone could actually keep pace with her in a pure race of speed. When it comes to raw speed, she is ranked top 2 in the entire nation. But that prestigious list might require a significant update, considering how Dojin was now making her eat his dust. A few moments later, he paused his run to mock her for being slower than he expected, when she was obviously trying to flex her incredible speed. While the winded S-ranker caught her breath, Dojin shifted his gaze to the breathtaking view on the horizon. Before them stood a gigantic mountain range that touched the very heavens. When he asked what was concealed within that rocky terrain, Juyun's expression turned deathly serious. That place is the nest of this rift's final boss monster, the dreaded Caesarian. You see, this so-called Caesarian is a colossal 20-meter-tall monster, closely resembling the draconic wyvern of legend. Yu Yeon doesn't even want to consider the idea of trying to subjugate that beast. You would normally need at least 3 combat specialized S-rank heroes to even have a sliver of a chance against such a monster. One thing Dojin knows for sure about the Caesarian is that it has a possibility of dropping the imaginary grade. Magic Crystal, a treasure just 1 tier below the highest grade imaginable. Since such a tantalizing prize is just waiting there for him, he has no intention of letting it slip through his fingers. Obviously, Jian was vehemently opposed to such a suicidal idea. Well, CO Dojin is going to fight that draconic beast with or without her. Ju Yun could only watch as he fearlessly sped off again, intent on scaling the mountains to slay the mythical beast. She felt as if she had no other option but to follow him headfirst into this absolute insanity. Something ominous awaits the duo inside the final boss monster's lair, bursting with an almost insane level of confidence to take down a beast that gives 3 S-rank heroes immense trouble. It truly shakes Jiyun down to her very core. Do you know what's even more unbelievable? When she finally arrives at the scene, she finds that very same creature, the Caesarian, lying dead at her feet. The entire fight was already finished, and she had absolutely no clue what in the hell had just transpired. Our boy casually pulls his knife from the monster's massive corpse, leaving her completely and utterly at a loss for words. Jahayan tries to process her overwhelming shock. The creature he just effortlessly downed isn't just some ordinary boss monster. On that note, she mentions a well-known hero by the name of Parkale, who built a legendary reputation for hunting down powerful monsters, just like the Caesarian. Though he's an S-rank himself, the first time he attempted to hunt down the Caesarian, he was cautious enough to bring 30 A-rank heroes along with him. And yet, even with all of those immense precautions, the A-rank heroes simply couldn't make the cut, and were all mercilessly slaughtered in the attempt. Parkale was the sole known survivor from that entire group, and he clung desperately to the edge of his life by the end of the boss fight. From that day forward, the man decided to have a rematch with that very same monster. Only this time, he was reinforced with 1 more S-rank and 100 A-rank heroes backing him up. It was practically a small-scale army at that point. The ensuing battle was utterly brutal. They concentrated on piercing the creature's wings and negating its ability to fly. The Caesarian from that time was then completely overwhelmed by a relentless barrage of attacks from the heroes. This actually reminds me of that 100 men versus 1 gorilla debate that has been making the rounds lately. My money is definitely on the men, by the way. And the very same was the result of the fight with the Caesarian, which ultimately ended up being defeated. Despite this victory, only a small handful of heroes remained from that battle. The rest were brutally butchered by the beast's unstoppable wrath. The damages they sustained that day were so catastrophic that Hale's guild, the Sweet Life, has still not recovered from it 3 years after the event. And yet this one, average-looking guy, has defeated the same Caesarian monster without much of a struggle. The funny thing is, with her nonstop staring, he reminds her that she isn't getting any of these priceless gems for just standing around and fighting the air. That remark may have irritated her. But Jian is more preoccupied with the absolute absurdity of this man before her very eyes. If she hadn't been there to witness the battle, she would never have believed in such an impossible conclusion. The same terrifying Caesarian was taken down and completely obliterated in a single devastating strike at the hands of just one man. As for Dojin, my boy has successfully harvested the awesome-looking magic stone from the creature's corpse. He gazes at it and then tells her that he no longer has any need for an escort to guide him. From this point forward, he is perfectly fine on his own. He also refuses to take the other remaining valuables obtained from the dragon's body, such as its valuable claws and its sharp teeth, showing little to no interest in any of them. He turns his back to reject her, bluntly leaving the S-ranker stunned for the rest of her life. Instead, he would prefer to focus his energy on gathering the monster crystals. He even goes so far as to permit her to keep all of those valuable parts for herself as a sort of compensation for her time. Ju-Yun glances at the monster's corpse for a moment and comes to the conclusion that she also doesn't require anything from the dead beast. It is now evening, and the remainder of her group is in utter shock. That one man managed to gather 3 bags overflowing with magic stones. It is an unbelievable spectacle, even for the highly competent A-rankers, for their own guild to have acquired the same amount. It would have taken them a bare minimum of 20 long hours, and judging by the high quality of the ingredients, it would take even more than 3 whole days. It truly begs the question of this man's true identity, and they are all now staring directly at Ju-Yun, who had brought him along in the very first place, and yet seems just as utterly bewildered as they are. Based on Ju-Yun's own personal account, the A-rank guildmaster can't possibly comprehend how Dojin was able to defeat the Caesarian without any kind of specialized equipment. With this single accomplishment alone, he now stands at the absolute pinnacle of the hero ranks in Korea, completely unrivaled in his sheer might. They are basically just saying our boy is built differently. The A-ranker even speculates that he might be the strongest hero in the entire world. At his insane level, it completely astonishes her. Speaking of the man himself, an exhausted Dojin returns with more bags in tow. With just a single day of hunting, he's already amassed such an incredible amount of stuff. At this stage, the group is beginning to think that no one will ever believe them if they reported these events to the outside world. Dojin's godlike power is the very definition of something too insane to accept. Speaking of which, they're explicitly ordered not to breathe a single word of what happened here today to the outside world, a command they have no choice but to accept. The gorgeous S-ranker approaches our boy and discusses a whole variety of things from a safe distance. It appears as if they're a couple who is flirting with each other, but that is only through the hopeful eyes of their teammates. I suppose they are trying to convince themselves that this is the very beginning of a new ship. They also believe that he is the only man in the world who seems like a truly suitable match for Ju-Yun, especially when you consider their monstrous levels of strength. The funny thing is how the A-rank guildmaster swiftly realizes that these two aren't the perfect couple she had pictured them to be. Instead, it appears they are having a heated argument from the looks on their faces. She cannot believe that a man exists in this world with the sheer audacity to talk down to Ju-Yun. Of all people, the most shocking part is, how do? June hands her a bag and departs quietly without saying another word. This astonishes the guild master even further. As for the status of the backpacks and the contents he had gathered, Ju-Yun repeats his own words. It turns out that Dojin dreads the possibility that he will become an overnight superstar if the outside world discovers he killed the Caesarian, since that is a significant problem for him. He dumps the responsibility of it squarely onto her shoulders. Hearing his final decision leaves both of them completely baffled for words. But the true irony in all of this is that the law of attraction ends up coming true, and Ju Yun develops a powerful curiosity to learn much more about this mysterious young man. This girl is totally in love. Over to a different scene. We get to learn more about the renowned S-ranker, mentioned earlier as Hale. He is out here going full beast mode on his punching bag. His assistant is in absolute awe of his intense training because it appears as if he is bursting with pure, unadulterated rage. As was stated before, he is the guild master of Sweet Life. The assistant helps him to calm his rage, reminding him that a little bit of patience will help him go a very long way. In these challenging times, even a great guild master agrees with that logic, believing that all those who dare to underestimate it will one day suffer the full extent of his wrath. And before too long, a time will arrive when everyone will be admiring his incredible strength as the world's most powerful guild master. His assistant then proceeds to bring up how his streak of hunting down Khazarians is what sets him far apart from the others, even going so far as to claim that his name will be forever etched into the history books. The hilarious irony is that legendary title will never be snatched from Dojin by anyone, unless a god literally descends from the heavens to perform a greater miracle. The delusional guild master shares this fervor with his loyal assistant, rambling on and on about his own fated achievements. Meanwhile, his guild has been bleeding members and suffering massive losses, a mere shadow of its glory from 3 years ago. And still, the one thing that brings a smirk to his face is the false belief, the delusion that he alone is the ultimate master of defeating the Khazarian, a fact that is eagerly confirmed by his sycophantic, one-eyed servant. Speaking of the world's apex predators, the scene shifts to the lavish office of Kong Young Pyo, who is currently digesting a report on Dojin's bloody evening, and how he utterly dismantled Young Pyo's pathetic cousin, even though Cheol Wu's entire scheme was to seal the boy inside the gate and entomb him forever. A shocking twist of fate occurred, which resulted in a powerful awakening. Furthermore, the client who commissioned them to eliminate Dujin is revealed to be the executive director, Ong Iju, a woman who sits at the very zenith of wealth in all of Korea. It makes no sense for her to personally target such an unknown individual, a true mystery in Young Pyo's eyes. That is, until he learns the shocking truth. Dujin is her own stepson, though the young boy was welcomed into their family at the age of 7. The very moment Ju's biological son entered this world, Dujin was ruthlessly cast out of the family. This revelation brings a smirk to Young Pyo's face, as he cruelly points out, not even a life of immense wealth can save you from being discarded. Regarding the payment for the assassination, he sees they were offered a mere 3 billion won for the mission, a paltry sum in his opinion. And then there's the detail that Cheol Wu now finds himself clinging to the very edge of life, following his brutal battle against Dujin, suffering from extensive burns and deep contusions. What is even more devastating is that he has been permanently blinded and has also been crippled for the rest of his miserable life. This only underscores the sheer ruthlessness of Daejun's methods, to the degree that even a psychopath like Young Pyo has to respect his actions. And yet, Young Pyo takes a twisted delight in stating he would have chopped off his limbs, in addition to crushing his entire skull. At first impression, you guys probably assumed he was more stable than his cousin, but now it is abundantly clear why he is far, far worse. While analyzing the scene of their brutal confrontation, it is mentioned that Jian was also present. She allegedly assisted Dojin in some unknown capacity. This particular detail genuinely surprises him, and he demands more information regarding the situation. He just cannot fathom what is so special about this Dojin. Unfortunately for him, not even his own assistant knows anything concrete about the meeting between those two, as the entire case was swiftly and quietly shut down. Infuriated beyond belief, Young Pyo violently grabs his servant and roars at him to do whatever it takes to uncover the nature of their mysterious relationship. He suspects that they must have forged some sort of secret alliance. The assistant, completely terrified by his master's explosive reaction, scampers off to begin his investigation immediately. Young Pyo is left to his own volcanic temper tantrum, smashing everything around him while considering that Ju's agents will come, seeking him out to complete the job his incompetent cousin failed to do. At the same time, he is more than eager to accept the contract from her. After all, she's a woman of unimaginable and nearly endless wealth, so it will not be a problem for this greedy, degenerate scumbag. And now, let's turn to the scene with our hero, who is finally returning home after the successful raid. From today's thrilling experience, He is more than satisfied to have spent his time in a rift, rather than a simple gate for a proper hunt. However, it also complicates matters, as he might have to forge a long-term relationship with Juyin to guarantee that he remains under the radar. Recalling their prior conversation, she directly told him that people will become suspicious of her and start asking questions about the person who truly killed the Caesarian. Revealing the truth means inviting a storm of unwanted trouble. So for the time being, her strategy was to hide the valuable and if he ever decides he wants to become famous, she can gladly unveil their existence to the entire world. In reply, our hero simply tossed the bag to her to keep all the good stuff. This also means he needs to find another way to go on and gain access to the restricted rift zones, because constantly relying on Ju-yun only creates more problems for her. Still, tonight's rest will be a peaceful one, as he gets to sleep in a magnificent house that Chang CEO has personally arranged for him. But as he sets foot inside the residence, he is immediately alerted by the numerous pairs of shoes just outside. This can only mean that some uninvited guests have arrived. Entering the living room, he finds a group of suited men and their leader, deep in conversation with his beloved family members. The man looks like a more world-weary version of Nanami from Jujutsu Kaisen, and he's staring down Dojin like a hawk. Yun joyfully rushes to embrace her brother with happiness, while Dojin is completely bewildered by the entire situation. Prosecutor Park Chaeyoung announces his identity loud and clear, and points out the known connection between Dojin and Chang Su. Because of his association with that man, Dojin is being placed under an immediate emergency arrest on suspicion of participating in the illegal money-lending syndicate that is controlled by the corrupt CEO of HCS Capital. Allowing the charade to play itself out, CEO Do-jun calmly surrendered himself to this supposed emergency arrest, which was connected to Huang Chang CEO's loan shark enterprise. He was swiftly placed in handcuffs and detained in a Spartan interrogation room. From within the Baron room, he could overhear an arrogant voice speaking on the phone. Outside, the prosecutor who had arrested him is reassuring someone on the other end that both Huang Chang, Seop and CEO Do-jun are acting like well-behaved little boys. Before ending the call, the prosecutor gratefully thanked the caller for handling his daughter's study arrangements overseas. Then he made the fatal mistake of uttering Director Hong's name within Do-jun's superhuman hearing range. Walking up to his completely silent detainee, the prosecutor rambled on about why he became a man of the law. He pompously claimed that ever since he was a child, he had always dreamed of purging society's absolute trash from the decent and law-abiding common citizens. Dropping a thick stack of documents onto the table, the corrupt prosecutor made a grand show of just how much dirt he had on CEO Do-jin. He confidently alleged that the charges, uncovered through their initial preliminary investigation, would be more than enough to lock the young man behind bars for at least a full decade. Furthermore, they had already gathered more than enough testimony from Huang Chang-sip to incriminate everyone involved in the operation. CEO Dojin did not even grace these poorly disguised threats with a reaction, since he failed to get the intimidated reaction he wanted. Mr. Prosecutor resorted to cursing him out like a child, cutting directly to the heart of the matter. Dojin coldly asked if that witch, Hong Hee-ju, is the mastermind behind this pathetic legal stunt. The prosecutor was visibly startled by this, but he furiously denied any such accusations, even going so far as to claim he had never even heard of that name. Dojin deduced that these crooked scumbags must have already coerced a confession from Huang Chang-siup's side. Dojin had come along quietly to prevent any further trouble, but things could escalate and get far worse at this rate. Refusing to be cowed by Dojin's powerful aura, the prosecutor bragged that people in his profession are certainly not pushovers. In response, the young man released just a sliver of his killing intent to shut his foolish mouth for good. The prosecutor nearly soiled his pants right then and there. He felt that piercing, predatory gaze on a primal level, a direct and imminent threat to his very existence. Ashamed that he was terrified by a handcuffed prisoner. But before he could commit the final stupid act of his entire life, a young intern suddenly interrupted, requesting him to step outside of the interrogation room for a brief moment. They had just received a report of some bizarre discrepancy in their files. For CO Dojin, the building's hero detector had evaluated the young man as nothing more than an ordinary person. Even after running the test a second time, the results stubbornly remained the exact same. Based on all the incidents CO Dojin has recently been involved in, how could that possibly make any sense? Perhaps they were mistaken about labeling the boy as an awakener. In the first place, the prosecutor had received all his intel from Hong Hee-ju's T group, so the information was supposed to be completely reliable. Right now, Dojin is an unsolvable, maddening puzzle. How could they possibly charge someone who registers as a normal civilian with incidents that clearly involve superhuman powers? Internally, Dojin is mocking the prosecutor for being such an utterly incompetent dog. If he truly wanted to, he could just shatter these flimsy handcuffs and smash this entire building into rubble. As for the aftermath, he could always just take his grandmother and Yun Young somewhere much safer, perhaps even overseas. But before he could resort to the most brutal solution, Hyun Ju-yeon, now wearing a sharp suit and tie, calmly entered the interrogation room. She must have learned about this completely unlawful arrest and came to investigate the situation herself. When she asked why he was being detained, Dojin bluntly replied that he's not entirely certain of the reason himself. Thankfully, Ju-yeon cautioned him against doing anything reckless. She might be the only other person who truly knows what this man is capable of. The entire situation is infuriating, but resorting to brute force now would only make things even messier. Ju-yeon definitely did not wake up today expecting to get entangled in the complicated legal system, but she knows for a fact that Dojin is completely innocent of whatever he is being accused of. With an innocent man facing unjust punishment for false charges right in front of her, she feels a moral obligation to rectify it. Ji-yeon predicted that the Hero Association would initiate a separate investigation very shortly. They will without a doubt discover Dojin's counterfeit hero license and will most certainly delve into the recent Mapo Rift incident. Do-jin then asked Ju-yeon how his family was holding up, and she suddenly realized she was being treated like some personal secretary when the young man glared at her with an unreadable, intense gaze. Yu-yeon relented and assured the man that his family would be well taken care of as she departed from the interrogation room, effectively becoming Do-jin's official legal counsel. He proclaimed that this particular debt would not be forgotten. She would never admit it. But Ju-yeon secretly liked that he was finally relying on her this time. She vowed that she would resolve this entire mess as swiftly as possible, and she was not joking in the slightest. Hyun Ju-yeon's chosen tactic wasn't a direct legal defense by simply proving Dojin's innocence. Instead, she exposed prosecutor Park Cheol-young's numerous crimes and corrupt backroom deals, which resulted in his immediate dismissal. Once that absolute scumbag was removed from the equation, a fair investigation proceeded without a hitch. Co De-jun was proven completely innocent in regards to the Loan Shark Syndicate and all the other recent incidents. However, he could not evade punishment altogether. Just as expected, the investigation confirmed his use of an unauthorized hero license. Thanks to Hyun Ju-yeon's proactive and aggressive defense, he got off with nothing more than simple probation. While they were driving back toward Do-jin's new home, breaking news about a never-before-seen monster appearing in England and causing mass destruction came on the car radio. The monster was described as a large, mantis-like creature, 1.5 meters in height, with massive compound eyes and terrifying leaping capabilities. Based on that description, Dojin identified the creature as a Macasian. Hyun Ju-yeon nearly crashed the entire car upon hearing him utter that name. Information regarding newly discovered monsters is classified and heavily guarded by the association. She only knows what a Macasian is because of her high status as an S-rank hero. You see, monsters are not given arbitrary names by some random researcher. Upon their death, they drop magic stones that contain not only condensed energy, but also unique and vital information. By carefully analyzing this encoded data, it is possible to learn a great deal about a monster, including its one true name. On present-day Earth, they utilize advanced science and technology for this analysis. On the other hand, magic was used in a world that was destroyed. In other words, Dojin is intimately familiar with monsters that appear in both worlds. He knows all their names and everything else there is to know about them. He casually blurted out that Macasians can be easily neutralized using fluid extracted from the red flower ant. This particular fluid is harmless to humans, but it acts as an extremely potent paralytic neurotoxin to Macasians. Simply spray those bugs and they will stop their rampage. Hyun Ju-yeon became deadly serious for a moment. His every action and every word just adds to his growing mystique. Who exactly is CO Do-jin? No matter how hard she tried to pry into his real identity, Do-jin would never give her a straight answer. His mind was actually focused somewhere else entirely. He's currently formulating a plan to stop any and all future headaches from ever occurring. The only logical solution he could come up with was to kill that witch, Hong Hee-ju. And speaking of the devil, Director Hong is now at her wit's end, nervously chewing on her fingernails, completely consumed by her anxiety. She frantically tried to create new schemes to deal with her husband's bastard son. With the sudden involvement of someone like Hyun Ju-yeon, she is feeling even more immense pressure to eliminate the boy. The director's assistant proved to be of little help. Even after depleting all their available resources, they still could not discover what kind of relationship the S-rank hero has with Doji. If they make one wrong move and offend a person of that stature, all the money their company possesses won't be enough to protect their asses. More importantly, Hong Hee-ju was deeply alarmed by the prosecution's report that Seo Do-jim registered as a completely normal citizen and not a hero on their advanced testing machines. Based on everything they have gathered about the boy, it's quite obvious that he has awakened some dangerous power. Perhaps he possesses some kind of ability to trick the hero detector. Hong Hee-ju is hemorrhaging vast sums of money from this personal crusade of hers, and the best her agents can provide are mere speculations. Absolutely enraged, she finally bit the bullet and made contact with the S-rank scoundrel, Kang Young-pyo, offering 20 billion, no, 30 billion won on the table to end this Dojin problem once and for all. Upon answering the call, the scoundrel greedily demanded double that payment to handle this little problem. Even his own subordinates thought it was a little too unreasonable to ask for 60 billion for such a straightforward job. He might be a degenerate scoundrel, but Kang Young-pyo is also a very shrewd and cunning bastard. He could sense that Hong Hee-ju had exhausted all of her options. There were no alternative solutions left for her. Besides, her massive company generates so much revenue. That's 60 billion. One would not even be noticed if it were missing from the company's coffers. Furthermore, Hyun Ju-yeon has now become a part of this equation, since Kang Young-pyo is now taking on the risk of fighting another S-rank. Doubling the initial price suddenly becomes a bit more reasonable. The underling agreed that Hyun Ju-yeon is a very dangerous opponent. Indeed, hearing his own employee give praise to another S-ranker deeply offended Kang Young-pyo's extremely fragile ego. He cursed the underling out for daring to doubt his fighting skills against someone of Ju-yeon's caliber. He arrogantly claimed that he could finish that witch in about 20 minutes. Of course, the terrified underling had to placate the boss in fear for his life. With a deeply unsettling smile, Young-pyo changed the topic to his ongoing transaction with the Hero Association. He is also negotiating a deal before flying out to the United Kingdom as one of South Korea's representatives to assist with the bug infestation. Unfortunately for Young-pyo, the association has been tightening its budget lately. Furthermore, those cunning bastards have already announced the selection process for the Hero Dispatch to the general public. They are practically making it impossible for the S-rankers to refuse being sent out. Young-pyo might be a common thug, but he views the association as a group far worse than simple thugs. The joint operation is set to begin in just 3 days. South Korea will be deploying its best and its brightest heroes, along with a group of Japanese heroes. At the very least, Young-pyo can meet up with an associate named Takashi. As of right now, the Macasian's weakness has not yet been discovered. Being the one to uncover such a critical piece of intelligence would raise any hero's reputation to the moon in the eyes of the general public. Speaking of the Macasians, those terrifying bugs have extended their invasion towards Cambridge in the UK. The British heroes have been battling around the clock to halt the relentless onslaught of these giant insectoid creatures. They managed to assemble a fairly decent team of heroes. Since it is the UK, they use a large number of blades in this particular region. The courageous frontline fighters are struggling to deal with a single colossal Macasian that is terrorizing the civilian population. This particular mantis possesses the speed and sharpness to kill slower heroes in a single devastating blow, getting into the rhythm of the battle. The British heroes struck back with a well-coordinated offensive. A group of heroes had a balanced formation, and based on their skill, they were certainly a force to be reckoned with. Some of them used powerful magic to tear through the thick exoskeleton by force. The others would quickly follow up with swift melee strikes, letting the bug's dark blood flow freely in the streets. With their expert coordination and considerable power, they finally succeeded in bringing down their very first Macasian. Just to be certain that the son of a bitch didn't have a second phase, or something similar, they swiftly decapitated its mantis head. The British heroes had finally scored a hard-won victory, but a single monster took every ounce of energy they had to deal with, and to completely and utterly shatter their spirits, a few more Macasians suddenly emerged, looking to take advantage of the exhausted heroes. That fateful night, the very best heroes the UK could muster perished in a brutal and utterly bloody wipeout. They truly gave their best and poured all their efforts into trying to stop the inevitable tide without any clear and vital information. They were completely helpless against these unknown invaders. The relentless Macasians are now advancing towards the south. The valiant defense of Cambridge has completely collapsed. There are now only about 60 kilometers between the bugs and the capital, London, just as the Macasians were about to begin their final push to completely erase London from the map. something luminous rained down on them from high above. When this mysterious fluid made contact with the bugs, they collectively seized up and fell in agonizing, burning pain. After a few short seconds of trying to fight off the effects, the Macasians began to fall one by one. The paralytic agent coursed through their entire systems, rendering all of their terrifying weapons completely useless in the face of biological warfare. High up in the air, the source of this miraculous rain revealed itself. A chopper was closely tailing the army of mantises from a safe altitude. Aboard that chopper were the elite heroes of South Korea and Japan. For this joint cavalry unit, every single one of them was astounded that such a simple solution, proposed by Hyun-Ju-Yun, actually worked. The red flower ant sap is working even better than expected. The Macasians are completely unable to endure it. They practically transformed into helpless, empty husks. Standing right beside Ju-Hyun was none other than Kang Yong-pyo. In his cynical eyes, there is no way that this woman miraculously guessed and managed to hit the jackpot, waking everyone from their daze. Hyun-Ju-Hyun took full command and ordered everyone to skydive down and finish the job. With a newfound respect and awe for Korea's premier S-rank hero, the entire cavalry unit dived towards the British soil to prevent a cataclysmic disaster. A few short days after that massive joint operation, the entire world was made aware of what had transpired in the UK and who the undisputed MVP of the operation was. Back in Korea, the media and adoring fans completely filled the airport, and everyone was desperate to catch a glimpse of the nation's pride. The reporters and their entire camera crews are all salivating to get an exclusive scoop about Hyun-Ju-Yun, the greatest hunter during the entire UK expedition. She was the one who discovered the Macasians' critical weakness and led the entire operation to its conclusion. She had single-handedly saved an entire nation from utter despair. It is even said that before she departed, she was knighted by the royal family for her incredible heroism. When Hyun-Ju-Yun finally set foot inside the bustling airport, an eruption of camera flashes and thunderous cheers from the civilians erupted. Like a true celebrity, she had long ago become accustomed to the limelight. Walking behind her was Kang Yong-pyo, trying to soak up the glory like he doesn't have a ridiculous haircut, even though Ju-Yun is a well-known public figure. The sheer intensity of today's reception was still a bit overwhelming. As for Kang Yong-pyo, he was credited with slaying the most Macasians during the entire expedition. Keep in mind, he basically just killed paralyzed and completely defenseless bugs. Their entire international contingent of heroes consisted of 200 people. The brilliant performance of the Korean heroes was the sole reason the UK still exists. Today on the news, all the details about the Macasian hunt, including the red flower ant sap weakness, were released to the public. While walking through the city, our hero, Seo Do-jin, overheard the news and paused for just a second. He was relieved that Jin was able to utilize his intel. But when they showed Kang Yong-pyo's face on the Jumbotron, his mood instantly soured. That smug-looking bastard on the giant screen is one more loose end that he needs to take care of very soon. Inside a random, high-end restaurant, Seo Do-jun is sipping coffee with the woman of the hour, Hyun-Ju-yeon. She has kindly brought tons of presents for little Yun-Young, his grandmother, and even for a hero. She warned him not to check the contents yet, saying it would be much better to open everything at home. Completely ignoring her words, Do-jun discovered some very nice-looking clothes in his stack of gifts. Juyeon simply wanted to offer him a small token of her thanks for that invaluable tip. Thanks to Do-jun's offhand piece of intelligence, she became the most celebrated hero in the entire world. Compared to the immense benefits she had received, some expensive clothes are practically nothing at all. So she promised to buy Do-jun a new car or anything else he wanted whenever he wanted. Bro has got himself a premium sugar mommy. She already knew that Do-jun wouldn't reveal how he knew about the weakness of the Macasians, but she still had to ask. As expected, that man is impossible to get information from. Changing the subject, Jian asked him about his plans for the future. He is not the type to preach about world peace or anything so grandiose. But if he sets his sights on Hong Hee-ju and Kang Yong-pyo, things are guaranteed to get very messy. Much to Jian's surprise, Do-jun's only immediate goal right now is to simply purchase a new house. The safe house his family is currently residing in is only a rental. After all, while the current star hero and the legendary former sword god were reconnecting, the other hero who gained fame in the UK expedition was living it up. Kang Yong-pyo was enjoying his welcome home pool party with women as far as the eye could possibly see. Surrounded by these women, this scoundrel cannot get his mind off of one specific girl, Hyun-Ju-yeon. He knows that the girl was not nearly this formidable before. She has changed in some fundamental way. He found it highly suspicious that she is hiding. How she discovered the weakness of those powerful bugs. During their flight back to Korea, Young-pyo also attempted to provoke her and pry for some information regarding CEO Do-jin. He mentioned how Ju-hyun swooped in to save the day when Do-jin got entangled with a corrupt prosecutor. She was also present when Kang Cheol-woo was brutally torn apart, knowing that he was trying to get a reaction out of her. Ju-hyun asserted that Cheol-woo, the complete moron, had started that entire conflict. Prior to that encounter, he had attempted to murder Do-jin and failed. Kang Yong-pyo's mouth twisted into a demented grin as he agreed. He also blamed the fool for getting blinded by some petty cash. Even so, Cheol-woo is still his precious cousin. He can always use their close relationship as a justification to exact his revenge on that CEO Do-jin fella. For just a split second, Ju-hyun nearly slipped and revealed her emotions. While she was being scrutinized by this shrewd, cunning bastard, she immediately created distance between herself and the conflict and insisted that she was in no position to meddle if something were to actually happen. Kang Yong-pyo was thoroughly confused. He genuinely thought she was much closer to that Dojin guy, ignoring him for the remainder of a long flight. Ji-yeon put her sleep mask back on and returned to her nap. Still, even after that pointed conversation, Young-pyo still can't shake the persistent feeling that she was not being entirely truthful. Kang Yong-pyo's paranoid mind is still maintaining extreme caution with everything regarding CEO Do-jun. Back over in England, the original site of the outbreak in Long Sutton was the local shrubbery. The immense damage the monster wave inflicted upon the area was still very apparent. The British Hero Association had deployed what little hero forces they had left inside the rifts to at least secure the magic stones before a second wave could erupt. Some of the guards stationed outside are discussing how they could have easily become deer anchors if they had only known that Macasians could be taken down with just a small amount of red flower and its sap. If their own forces had managed to block the wave early on, they could have easily farmed ungodly amounts of valuable magic stones. You see, once a rift breaks open with a monster wave, it can never be converted into a gate before the second wave. It is highly probable that a completely different type of monster would pour out. There are numerous records about entire countries being annihilated during the second wave. The unknown variable is the most terrifying part. Suddenly, the very rift itself throbbed. The raid team had just entered not long ago to harvest the stones inside. It has only been about 5 hours. It's nowhere near enough time for them to pull out. Even so, the D-rank guards tightened their surveillance perimeter, since desperate civilians trying to steal loose magic stones are a very common sight around active rifts. Instead of the usual sequence of people emerging from the rift, the entire thing seemed to completely shatter. Instead of the expected mining team, something or someone else emerged from the broken rift. His humanoid face was heavily scarred, and the suit of armor he was wearing looked completely out of this world. This man is most certainly not a hero. His otherworldly outfit and deep scars don't even look realistic. Before the poor, unsuspecting guards could contact their headquarters, they lost all control of their bodies and began to float in midair. The man took a single step, and it seemed as if he had teleported, while effortlessly levitating the guards. British Guard number 1 desperately tried to fight back, unleashing the UK's signature weapon. 3 flying knives. The blades swiftly reached their intended target, but multiple circular green lights caused them to simply vanish, as if they had never existed in the first place. With a raspy, deep voice, the man complained that these guards are far too weak. He clenched his fist and commanded the green lights to move. As a result, the helpless guards were painfully sliced and diced, losing all of their limbs. Imagine being turned into a living, limbless mannequin on the job. A dark, swirling miasma flowed from the strange man's body. Using that ominous dark miasma, he commanded dominion over space and grabbed one of the guard's smartphones. He quickly verified the current date and then calculated that it has been a full 10 years since the last time he had set foot on Earth, and yet his grand mission hasn't even reached 20% completion. After all of his effort to open up these dimensional rifts, is it finally time to concede his utter failure? No. He just needs to increase the ambient mana concentration to get back on schedule. But before that, this entire planet is due for some proper cleaning up. It is about time to weed out all the weaklings. Back in South Korea, specifically in the rugged Paeju region, a certain young man is venturing out on one of his routine farming excursions, completely unaware of what is unfolding on the other side of the globe, carrying nothing but a simple backpack. CEO Dojin walked around the highly restricted area. Suddenly, his heightened senses flared up after detecting abnormal vibrations in the ground. Just as he had anticipated, a battalion of disgusting worm monsters surfaced, eager to sample some fresh meat. Their writhing bodies were covered with sharp metallic spikes, their gaping mouths layered with rows of razor-sharp fangs. Dojin stood calmly in the middle of their party, completely serene and unbothered by their flashy display of raw power. Instead of looking up at the towering monsters, he turned his attention downward to the holes that the worms had created. He measured the hole with a single calculating glance, and estimated that there are approximately 26 worms hiding underground, within a 100-meter radius. With a sadistic smile, he began gathering mana in his hand, eager to test the strength of these bugs. He wondered just how many of these worms could survive his initial attack. He sent the condensed mana blast hurtling down into the open hole, and an eerie, heavy silence followed. After a few seconds of patient waiting, the much-anticipated explosions finally chain reacted towards every other hidey hole in the immediate area, along with flying debris and scorching hot flames. Every worm wriggling underground was violently forced upwards to escape from being cooked alive. Dejun is a strong believer in working smarter, not harder. With this ingenious technique, he doesn't even have to get his clothes dirty. While he was busy farming free magic stones from these disgusting worms, a meeting of grave importance was being held in the city. Minhonki, the Korean Hero Association's deputy director, and his superior, Na Taewong, were discussing a certain young man who was proving to be incredibly difficult to handle. Of course, they were referring to none other than Co. Doo-jin. According to their internal reports, the boy's strength could not even be measured with a standard issue hero meter. Other association executives: it is an unacceptable and grave threat to have an entity of such caliber unleashed and unaccounted for within the country. They demand that Co. Doo-jin answer to the association's authority. According to the deputy director's intel, every inexplicable thing about Co. Doo-jin began with Kang Cheol-woo's nefarious scheme. After awakening in the very gate where he was meant to perish, Doo-jin dirving a profund transformation. He later exacted his vengeance and single-handedly conquered the new Mapo Rift. Certainly, he has demonstrated some extreme measures from time to time, but he has always possessed a valid reason for his actions. All things considered, Co. Dojin's power can only be described as an overwhelming force of nature. Na Taewong mused that a wild stallion is the most difficult to tame. Nevertheless, they now have a powerful horse in their stable, and that is what matters. What ignited this entire high-level discussion in the first place was Dojin's direct request for an official hero license. He was given a special privilege to bypass the standard process, since he possessed a powerful guarantor, of course. That influential backer was none other than the S-rank darling of the nation, Hyunju Yun. Upon learning of his connection to the Golden Girl, the old guard of the association was left utterly speechless, knowing they could not possibly afford to disrespect Ju Yun, given how influential her name is at the present moment. Co. Doo-jun's petition for a hero license was seamlessly approved and fast-tracked. He was officially designated as the 8th S-rank hero of South Korea, and he had not even once set foot inside the association's headquarters. Thanks to this newfound legendary status, he can finally hunt in any rift zone he desires to his heart's content. It is not a bad thing to possess. The way he wreaked absolute havoc in the dangerous Paiyu Rift Zone, incinerating those deadly worms to a fine crisp, quickly reached the ears of the association's director. That formidable old man was quite amused that the country's newest ranger was already proving himself worthy of the title. It is not a common occurrence to hear about a hero entering a second-degree rift, completely alone, without any guild members or allies for support. It is simply pure insanity in the eyes of ordinary people. The vice president, the same man who had vehemently opposed Co. Doo-jin, is now the one advocating to reveal the young man's identity to the world, so the association can begin promoting its powerful new rising star. Fortunately, the deputy director shot down such a foolish and greedy proposal. Min Honky insisted that they should request the man's permission first, before thrusting him into the chaotic life of a public figure. The VP countered that since they are living in an era of great unrest, giving the people another powerful symbol of hope in the form of a new S-rank hero would greatly alleviate the stress of the masses. Mr. VP tried his absolute best to sell this idea to director Na Taewong, but the old man wisely chose to be cautious before the association makes any official moves. He wants to meet the boy himself, face to face. Speaking of the devil, Co. Doo-jin is still deep in his worm-slaying marathon. When he wasn't using devastating mana explosions, he was relying on good old-fashioned brute force. As he slices through one unfortunate worm, the rest of the writhing abominations loomed over him. They might be a formidable opponent for average heroes, but their movements are practically telegraphed in Dojin's experienced mind. With his hand imbued with the searing power of his own mana, he unleashed a devastatingly wide sweep that incinerated and decapitated a dozen worm monsters. In a single, breathtaking motion, he landed back on the ground, and dozens of lifeless worm carcasses rained down around his feet. Dojin stood atop the mountain of corpses, radiating an aura of pure dominance. His hands were still glowing red from the afterburn of his powerful technique. He sighed and waved the last remaining flickers of flame away. As he had expected, the mana consumption rate from continuously hunting and killing swarms of high-level monsters is certainly no joke. To fix that issue, CEO Dojin finally resolved to acquire a weapon befitting his status. As one would expect, the ideal place to find some much-needed equipment was the Gyuzin Hero Complex. CEO Dojun chose a nondescript store and stepped inside. A bruised and battered-looking man was tending to the counter, playing on his phone to ward off the crushing boredom. The welcome chime rang, but he didn't even bother to look up at who had arrived, as he mumbled if the new customer had an appointment. CEO Dojin ignored the lazy bum's question entirely and dropped his heavy backpack onto the counter, demanding that they craft a weapon using the materials contained within. Visibly annoyed, the bum stated that they do not serve customers without a reservation. Dojin had already been turned away by every other shop on the block, all of them claiming to be completely booked for weeks. This was the one and only shop that had answered his phone call. Still, the bum adamantly refused to even entertain Dojin, furious that he had to divert his eyes from his phone screen. With his patience now wearing dangerously thin, Dojin seized the insolent bum by the collar. Ignoring the pathetic string of threats and curses, he demanded to know the identity of the shop's true master. The bum arrogantly proclaimed that his own father owns the establishment. If that is truly the case, he had better summon Daddy immediately. CEO Dujin came here specifically because of a very trustworthy recommendation. The bum was released. He scoffed, but cowardly scurried off into another room and called for his father. An old man, wearing a custom-modified welding mask, emerged from the workshop to see what all the commotion was about. His name is Choi Chil-won, a master craftsman of legendary hero armaments. Dujin stated that he had come here on Hyunju Yun's personal recommendation. Of course, both the father and son immediately recognized that name. Hell, the entire nation knows that prestigious name. Old man. Choi was just astonished that an S-rank celebrity knew about his humble craft. CEO Dujin did not come here for pointless small talk, so he simply pulled out all the raw materials from his bag. The old master gave the materials a careful and thorough inspection, and identified them as a giant black viper's fawn. It had been a very long time since he had laid eyes on one. Well, CEO Dojin desires a proper sword to be forged from this rare material. He demands that his weapon be crafted as long as physically possible. Don't we all, brother? The master craftsman immediately argued against this specific request. Stretching non-metallic materials out too much would be catastrophic to their overall durability. It would be far more effective to forge two medium-sized swords instead. Hearing that weak and pathetic compromise, Dojin asked if the old man was openly admitting to possessing subpar skills to forge what his customer actually wanted. Regardless, he does not want two separate swords. He simply wants to fuse them together into one. The only thing that matters to him is length. Well, it's also how you use it too, buddy. Aside from its absurd length, he wants the mana absorption rate pushed up to its absolute maximum level. Hearing these ceaseless and borderline impossible requests, the bum could not just stand idly by any longer. He is incredibly proud of his father, a man who could forge weapons with at least a grade 3 mana absorption rate. CEO Dojin responded by casually picking up one of the swords that was displayed at the forefront of the shop. He gave the blade a quick once-over and evaluated its material as grade 5. Then, he gripped the razor-sharp end of the sword with his bare hands. Both father and son stood there, silent and in absolute shock, as their unusual customer performed a literal miracle. The tightening of his grip continued, until the death grip caused the grade 5 material to completely shatter. Under the sheer, overwhelming force, this product, which the shop was so proud to display right up front, was reduced to nothing more than sharp dust and scattered debris. The bum silently thanked his lucky stars that he didn't mess any further with this mysterious customer. The old man watched as his prized creation splintered apart. CEO Dujin then warned Choi Chul-won that if he was only going to craft garbage with the materials provided, he would be better off just refusing the job right now. If these bare hands can turn a grade 5 weapon into fine dust, imagine what they could do to your face. After finally securing a shop that would accommodate his insane demands, CEO Dojin immediately set out for another dungeon. Today, his target is a green-skinned, one-eyed monstrosity of nature, with its exceptionally sharp senses. The Cyclops shrieked as it detected a hostile presence somewhere nearby. While other hunters go for maximum style points with their fancy gear, CEO Dojin prefers to solo hunt in just his jeans and a hoodie. Since he doesn't have a suitable weapon just yet, these hands will have to suffice for now. The Cyclops did not allow him to get a free hit in. It attempted to stomp him out right from the very beginning. When its initial devastating attack missed, the one-eyed abomination fell into a state of panic. Dojin leaped high up into the air, effortlessly compensating for the massive difference in their size. His mana-infused sword hand moved as swiftly as lightning itself, as it chopped off some juicy shoulder cyclops meat. The searing pain made the beast screech in a higher and more grating pitch. Desperate to strike back, it utilized its monstrous raw strength and gargantuan size to uproot an entire tree from ground. He swung it around like an absolute madman, desperate to swat the hooded menace out of the air. Unfortunately for the massive Cyclops, such mindless and aimless tactics will not work against this man. He braced himself for the impact, and two more deep, and gruesome wounds appeared on either of its shoulders. It was an absolute bloodbath. Normally, this would signal the end of the hunt if Dojin were facing any other type of monster, but Cyclops are a very special breed. They possess such powerful regenerative abilities that they can easily tank and scoff at otherwise fatal wounds. Dojin had already factored this overpowered ability into his calculations earlier. If the enemy has insane levels of healing, you simply have to keep inflicting more damage without giving the Cyclops a single chance to retaliate. After a fresh regeneration, Dojin scratched, and to cap things off in style, he beheaded the giant monster and stuck his perfect superhero land. It was a clean, yet exceptionally bloody, victory over the green-skinned meathead. CO Jun sighed in light exhaustion. Right now, maintaining a mana sword for extended periods of time is still far too demanding and highly inefficient. He grabbed his bag and pulled out a large pitcher. Jun then dipped that container into one of the gruesome wounds he had given the Cyclops, as if he were just collecting some fresh juice. This was the sole purpose of today's expedition, to collect some of that good, old Cyclops blood. He returned to the Hero District just as the sun was set. As usual, the insolent bum was manning the front counter, so he wordlessly plopped his pitcher of blood down. He instructed the Papa's boy to deliver this pitcher to his daddy. With this, the two black viper fangs could finally be fused together. After that one brief explanation, he refused to elaborate any further and walked right out of the shop. All the essential materials for his new weapon have now been gathered, but if he wants to achieve a higher mana absorption rate, he still needs one final ingredient. And there's only one place on Earth where he can find it. While he was planning and mapping out a way to find that secret component, his fellow S-ranker was in the middle of receiving a very important phone call. Hyunju-Yun was enjoying a relaxing vacation when she answered the call and heard a country mentioned, Brazil. The sun is shining and the water is absolutely perfect. But Hyunju-Yun can't even fully enjoy her getaway because of that phone call. Following their recent successful European mission, the Korean Association has now decided to dispatch its heroes to Brazil. That can only mean the Brazilian government and their association have completely given up on shutting down the rift zones by themselves, as far as Jong and Ju is aware. The Brazilian monsters are known to be especially violent, but the magic stone drop rates are unnaturally high there. With a lot of money now on the line, her Cleome guild is also scheduled to be dispatched. She urged Ju-Yun to accept the dangerous mission and to go with the friend she was with just a few days ago. Inju speculated that the country's 8th S-ranker must be that man they had previously entered the dungeon with, the one who is rumored to be Hyunju-Yun's man. Inju is fully supportive of this budding romance. She found it incredibly romantic that two supremely powerful individuals hunted down the fearsome Kaseri, with just the two of them alone. After a great deal of goading, Inju finally managed to convince Ju-Yun to agree to the Brazilian mission. However, she has absolutely no idea if that man would even show up. Back at the small shop in the Guzan Hero Complex, Old Man Choi was gazing upon his own creation with sheer awe. He never could have imagined that metallic materials could be melted down and fused together by simply using Cyclops blood. If it were not for this mysterious young man, he never would have discovered such a bizarre and effective technique. With this new method, he can make the sword as long as Dojin desires. They could now reach the upper limit of approximately 180 centimeters. CO Dojin wants a two-handed blade that has an adjustable grip for one-handed swings, something that weighs around 5 kilograms. Old Man Choi was surprised to see the rude boy from yesterday speaking with such politeness. He actually does know some basic manners. Perhaps his new weapon really is just that important to him. Old Man Choi warned him that 5 kilos would be very heavy to swing one hand. It's not as if he will only swing the weapon once or twice. Dojin knows the exact specs he desires, and he refuses to budge on that. Old Man Choi estimated that the forging process would take at least a full month, and the mana absorption rate should reach a respectable grade 7. But he was unsatisfied with just a simple grade 7 rate. That level could not possibly contain his full, unbridled power. As expected, he truly needs the final push from one very specific ingredient. Dojin headed for the exit and tasked the old man with just getting the shape completed. For now, the mana absorption upgrade could wait until after he has acquired the rest of the necessary materials. As a highly experienced artisan, Old Man Choi had some idea about what rare material the boy was referring to. He couldn't help but shudder at the thought. A few days later, Seo Dojin went out into the city to meet with a very important woman. Hyun Ju-yeon had fulfilled her promise and bought him a brand new car. Dojin appreciated the generous gift very much. She assured him that this, legitimately, was nothing compared to how much he had helped her. It is just a 1 billion won car, which is no big deal at all. Wei thanked her with a genuine smile. Ju-yeon reverted to being a shy young girl for just a moment. While he was meticulously inspecting every inch of his new wheels, Ju-yeon inquired about what had happened to him at the Hero Association. After meeting with all the bigwigs, those crusty old men had proposed to make his information public, but Dojin had demanded a very hefty payment if they wanted to do that. He recognized that President Nae-tae-won is all about the so-called greater good, but politics just muddles everything up anyway. The negotiation ultimately fell through. After finishing his external examination, Dojin hopped into the driver's seat of his new car. Hyun Ju-yeon quietly slipped into the passenger seat. While fastening her seatbelt on, she brought up the association's preparations for the impending and dangerous Brazil operation. After she uttered the word Brazil, Dojin tuned out every other word she said. He drew closer to her and sincerely asked her if she was going. Stunned, she could barely manage to stammer that she would be. If that's the case, he invited Ju-yeon to go there together. The S-rank Brazilian Riz is absolutely unreal. It made the heart of the nation's greatest hero skip a beat, as her cheeks began to uncontrollably blush. Meanwhile, another woman is turning red with rage because of Seo Do-jeon. The rich bitch, Hong Hee-ju, is in the middle of being extorted by Kang Young-pyo for even more money. He urged director Hong not to pinch pennies at a critical time like this. He already has a 3 billion won advance, and yet he is still demanding more. This man hasn't even started on his supposed job to finally eliminate Seo Do-jin. Running out of all patience, Hong Hee-ju seriously considered just hiring someone else to do her dirty work. She figured that there are plenty of other lowlifes out there who would gladly kill for tons of cold, hard cash. No questions asked. Kang Young-pyo just laughed at her outdated intel, so he offered her a free tip. He just discovered that Seo Do-jin has now become the nation's newest S-ranker. They are, for all intents and purposes, peers. Director Hong refused to believe that the weak-willed boy she had callously driven away from the family had somehow transformed into some kind of superhuman. Young Pyo had spent a great deal of his own money to secure this intel. If Hong Hee-ju refuses to believe it, she can simply wait until Seo Do-jin climbs this very tower and kills the bitch himself, overcome with desperation and the fear of retaliation. Director Hong stopped Young Pyo from leaving. She is completely out of her depth, and she does not want to die. This insane lady promised to pay as much as it would possibly take, just to take Seo Do-jin permanently out of the picture. Kang Young Pyo smiled and replied. He had changed his mind. Instead of demanding more cash, he would much rather have a stronger business partnership with the director's powerful conglomerate. Moving forward, at this critical point, Hong Hee-ju would gladly agree to any form of payment. At that very moment, he received an extremely important text message. It seems as if the heavens are smiling down upon the accursed lady. The perfect opportunity to eliminate Seo Do-jin has just appeared. A few days later, the nation was buzzing with the news of yet another massive international expedition for the nation's elite heroes. All the S-rankers who had accepted the mission are now aboard a luxurious private jet. On social media, the people are excited to watch 5S ranks save another country on the brink of total annihilation. Korean users were absolutely bursting with national pride. One of the S-rankers was Jong Sung-ho, who had carried the P group to the very top on his own. He only agrees to accept missions if there are tons of money to be made. There's also Park Hale. His guild has recently shrunk down to nothing, so the cash reward from this particular expedition is desperately needed. Hyun Ju-yeon, on the other hand, is the country's current reigning national hero. She had just saved Great Britain, and now she is heading to Brazil without even resting in between. Kang Young-pyo must be going. After hearing the word about the generous tax exemption for every magic stone acquired during the mission, snagging a single mid to high stone could change a normal person's entire life. While the other S-rankers were being celebrated and discussed all over the internet, one single figure generated more questions than rumors. Seo Do-jin was seen as a young, unproven rookie, making his grand debut on the international stage. No matter, with these 5 heroes at the top of the food chain, Brazil is about to get extremely rowdy. After a long and largely uneventful flight, the elite group finally arrived in Sao Paulo, Brazil. The Brazilian Hero Association has gathered to discuss how everything will proceed from here. They are incredibly eager to welcome the renowned Korean expedition team. They were the fastest to respond. out of all the countries from which they had requested assistance. A few of the S-rankers didn't even bother to check into their hotel rooms and just jumped immediately into the action. Still, the bigwigs are worried that the Koreans might uncover something they've been trying desperately to keep secret. But there is no such thing as a truly everlasting secret, so they just have to make sure that everything remains under their strict control until this critical collaboration is finally over. Brazil's own national treasure hero, Marais, has been defeated by some unknown, mysterious entity. It was a truly gruesome way to go. He was not taken down by a monster. His black box recorder definitely caught the image of a human killer. Nobody knows what exactly transpired near the Sanram Rift. Right now, the Korean expedition team is receiving the essential briefing about their official plan of action. While everyone else was listening with rapt attention, Hyun-Ju-Yeon was busy texting and searching for Seo Do-jin. As it turns out, he had remained on the plane and boarded a connecting flight to an even further destination. He's going directly for the Sanram Rift. Ju-Yeon couldn't help but feel a pang of worry. She had just learned that this man is heading to the most troublesome rift, completely by himself. Supposedly, the team will undergo a 2-day local adaptation period and will then be assigned to the rift zones they had applied to be deployed in. After the briefing, Ju-Yeon did not linger for long and got into a taxicab. Kang Young-pyo followed her to ask where she was going, when they were not supposed to be moving around just yet, just to get rid of his annoying presence. She revealed that she was heading to Santrum for a little while. Young-pyo obviously found that highly suspicious. The Brazilian Association had explicitly warned them of the immense dangers of that specific place. The rift zone, located near Santrum, had devolved into a barren wasteland. Hyun-Ju-Yeon and the Cleome Guild rendezvoused with Seo Do-jin to tag along on his supposedly solo mission. Since they had gone to the trouble of rushing to this godforsaken place, Ju-Yeon demanded to know why he was in such a great hurry. Do-jin retorted that they were the ones who had arrived late. They began to bicker like an old married couple, exasperated by her incessant questioning. Do-jin finally answered that he is hunting for the blue croco. It was a very underwhelming response. Displeased with how casually he speaks to her, Ju-Yeon insisted that she is 3 years older than him and demanded a bit more common courtesy. While the two of them continued to bicker, the Cleome Guild just stood back and watched the show. Guild leader Jong and Ju had never met anyone who possessed the balls to boss Ju-Yeon around. As they ventured deeper and deeper into the foreboding rift zone, some of the Cleome Guild members felt hesitant to continue forward without a proper and well-thought-out plan. But the presence of Hyun-Ju-Yeon in their party assured them that they would be safe. There is no denying how incredibly skilled she is, but it seems as if the mysterious newbie was the one taking the lead, while the others were doubting the man up front. Those who had been present for the dungeon run a little while ago were completely confident in the newbie's leadership abilities. Confused and still a little worried, Ju-Yeon wanted to know if Do-jin was actually planning to shut down the entire rift. He denied having such a grandiose objective. He had just come here for the rare materials and to squeeze this zone for all it's worth. After a few more minutes of relatively peaceful trekking, they finally came face to face with the claws of their first major obstacle. The Cleome Guild is filled with talented A-rankers, so they all skillfully moved into their respective roles. They possessed a clear hierarchy and concise, on-the-fly shot calling to deal with unexpected enemies. Even so, the blue crocos that were barring their advance were far more monstrous in person than they appeared in the photos. All they could manage was to defend, and it was getting a little too dangerous. With the group's advance halted, Seo Do-jin finally decided to make a move. He drew his blade and commanded the A-rankers to get out of his way, while everyone's undivided attention was focused on it. This man did not miss his opportunity to radiate his powerful aura. Old man Choi knew that he was going after the blue croco's heart, so he had lent Do-jin a prize sword from his collection temporarily. He fixed his predatory gaze on the target up ahead and blasted off like a powerful cannonball. With one single, clean sequence, he turned the pesky blue crocos into freshly sliced meat. He moved with such speed and decisiveness that he actually activated the classic anime slash After Effects. Do-jin was already meters away from the beasts by the time they fell. Those who had wholeheartedly believed in the mysterious newbie from the very start were completely vindicated, and those who had doubted him in the lead were shocked beyond all words. That boy is just unbelievably and insanely strong. After that initial minor hiccup, the journey into the rift zone proceeded without much further trouble. The sun had finally set, and the party had established their camp, huddled around a warm campfire. The Cleome Guild could not stop talking about how Mr. Seo Do-jin had taken down an entire group of blue crocos, all by himself in a single devastating shot. He did not even manage to break a sweat. It is not yet known to the general public But that is exactly how he had defeated the fearsome Caesarion as well. One thing is absolutely certain. This man is no ordinary hero. While the others were gossiping, Dojin was busy watching his sickly-looking steak cook over the fire. Hyunju-yeon approached his quiet spot and asked if he had finished organizing the blue croco hearts. Well, the coolers he had brought with him are now filled with that stuff. Ju-yeon still couldn't imagine what those hearts could possibly be good for. Turning her attention to his cooking pan, she asked what kind of strange meat was sizzling in there. It most certainly did not look like beef. He casually replied that he was just grilling some fresh blue croco meat. She could taste his meat if she so desired. There are plenty of normal provisions prepared for this entire expedition, and yet this man is cooking what he had just hunted. Ignoring her completely disgusted expression, Dojin took a bite of his grotesque-looking meal. He chewed and then swallowed as if he were dining in a five-star barbecue restaurant, using his sharp knife as a fork. It was quite a grisly and disturbing sight. Even Jong and Ju was completely weirded out. They have so much regular food in their stock, and yet their temporary leader is chomping down on cursed monster meat. After getting over her initial wave of disgust, Hyunju-yeon's curiosity got the better of her. She picked up a cut for herself and stared at it intently for a while. Inju wanted to stop her friend from doing something she might later regret, but Ji-yeon trusts in Dejun's peculiar taste. As the piece of blue-colored meat approached her mouth, Inju could do nothing but watch on in absolute horror. Ju-yeon gently bit into the rancid-looking piece of meat. After swallowing just one tiny little bite, she was pleasantly surprised by its incredibly delicious taste. And so, two people in the camp wordlessly enjoyed a very bizarre meal. Curious, Jong and Ju whispered and asked Mr. Co. Do-jin about his secret. How could a relatively unknown person so easily charm someone like Miss Ju-yeon? Sure, she is inexperienced and has never even had a boyfriend, but she's not the type to easily give her heart away to just any man. So what exactly did Dojin do to charm and romance Korea's national treasure? Into trying his strange monster meat, hearing the mention of romance made him recall his days back at the Imperial Academy. It was a very long time ago, before he had even turned 20. With regards to the subject of romance, there was Miss Mazel Grain from the noble Grain Count family. There was also the youngest daughter of the Lazulian family, Luenda Lazulian. And of course, his last sanctuary in that completely destroyed world, the valiant and beautiful knight, Veronica. He got way too lost in reminiscing about his distant past and was brought back to reality by Inju's whispered shouting. As for his secret, he simply answered that Ji-yeon is the moth drawn to his flame. Inju had never heard something more cringeworthy in her entire life. Just like that, the night passed by with a very playful and lighthearted atmosphere. Even Dojin was smiling and genuinely having some fun. Back in Seoul, Palo Kong Young Pyo is still living it up in a grandiose hotel suite. He is still wondering why Hyunju-yeon was in such a mad rush to move out, when the official operation date had not even been assigned yet. According to his own sources, she is currently moving with Co. Dojin and Jong in Ju's guild. He turned to his nervous assistant and inquired about the range of profitable monsters in the Sandrum area. As far as he is aware, there should be none that would be considered remotely lucrative. Every single thing that is related to that bastard, Co. Do-jin, is simply far too unpredictable. Young Pyo's worries instantly vanished when the hateful Director Hong rang his personal phone. As always, she had called to ask if the job has been completed. Hearing how incredibly impatient she sounds, Kong Young Pyo prodded her to see if something had happened on her end. Well, she is worried that her father might have discovered the news of Do-jin's ascension to S rank. He is telling the boy to finally come back home. Now that the powerful chairman of T Group is getting involved, Hong Hee-ju is getting more antsy than usual. Young Pyo finds her immense suffering quite amusing. Still, he has finally met a proper partner who could net him immense personal profits. He will make certain that she will not feel disappointed. He confidently assured the bitchy director that Co. Do-jin would not be able to return to Korea alive. Hearing him say that provided Hong Hee-ju with some semblance of relief, Kim Yong-pyo marked a specific spot on his map and prepared to contact someone by the name of Takashi. Now that Co. Dojin has slunk off into an isolated place of his own volition, his work has become a great deal easier. When the sun had risen, the Santrum expedition team continued on their journey, with Dojin at the very helm. Hyunju-yeon held the map as their navigator, and she warned Dojin against going directly towards the jungle because of the monsters there. Chief among those that warrant extreme worrying is the lynx. Of course, Dojin knows absolutely everything there is to know about the lynx. Instead of staying clear of the dense and dangerous jungle, Co. Do-jin immediately headed straight for the most dangerous path there is. Ji-yeon knows that. There is absolutely no stopping this man once he sets his eyes on a prize, but she compelled him to at least put on some earplugs. Thankfully, she had prepared some for him in advance. Earplugs are an absolute requirement when fighting a lynx. Its cries have a bewitching effect that can completely paralyze the mind. Dojin was fully aware of that, but he still refused to take the plugs. Jian did not easily give up, trying to convince him to please put the earplugs on. The intel and the warning came from the Brazilian treasure hero himself. After all, ignoring her desperate pleas, CEO Dojin wordlessly and casually traversed the heavy and dense thicket of the Santorum jungle, leaving them with no other choice. Hyun Ju-yun and the Cleome Guild were dragged into this truly treacherous detour. After a full day of non-stop, arduous trekking, they finally reached the fearsome monster's lair. Under the brightly lit moonlight, the lynx stared them down like a hungry predator eyeing its helpless prey. It looked just like a deranged, overgrown, and monstrous cat. As soon as the terrifying beast made its presence known, Inju commanded her subordinates to immediately cover their ears. While everyone else was panicking, Dojin just stared at the cat without even flinching. He is not the prey here. Two apex predators sized each other